let's join the band as we all head for the refreshment stand.
It's say hello and welcome to the Concession Stand. I'm here with Zenrot. I'm Wokey, and I'm the only other person on the Concession Stand.
That was just exactly the podcast intro.
Fucking...
1 for 1.
One of these days, I'll have to figure out a way to do a solo one. But yeah, welcome back to the Concession Stand. It's been a long-ass time.
It really has been. Jesus.
As long as it is for the JoJo waiting for part 5.
Yeah. When Concession Stand JoJo episode.
Yeah, but we're back mainly because I'm finally less busy, so we're actually able to do stuff, and we were reminded too, so that's always a nice thing.
Yeah.
But we really do like doing these, it's just that sometimes our schedules are crazy.
Yeah, these are like my favorite things to do, but they take like an hour plus to record, and so it's hard to always get both of our schedules to line up for like over an hour, especially when we have to do the modcast too.
That too, yeah, definitely. A podcast formerly known as Modcast, please.
Right.
Until the new name is found and discovered. All right, so let's get into it. Today on Concession Stand, we'll be talking about JoJo Part 3 and 4, and I bet you're wondering, that's a lot of fucking things to talk about.
Yeah, those are extremely long.
Didn't you guys take like an hour and 30 minutes to get through half the story of Part 1? And you're correct, so we will be giving the sparsest of details because of the plot-wise. We will be going further into it, but really we're going to get just the basics of it. You should really watch
plot
both.
Summary is going to be like a Wikipedia
overview. Shorter than a Wikipedia, because I looked at the Wikipedia and that shit is super tense.
Is it super long?
Some JoJo fanboys went in there and were talking about like how whole horse felt about in this specific situation. All right, so let's go. Part 3. If you remember from the ending of Part 2, Joseph, the previous Joestar main guy, was going to Japan to visit his daughter. He goes to Japan, and then he ends up... I forget the exact situation because it's been such a long-ass time since I've seen Part 3. But either way, he goes to prison where he meets his grandson, Jotaro, who has put himself in prison because he thinks he's like dangerous to himself. This is where you basically learn, this is the introduction to stands. You also meet Mohammed through here, and you kind of get introduced to the new JoJo guy, and then some stuff kind of gets set up where Jotaro's mom gets sick because something's happening, because turns out Dio, who died at the end of Part 1, well, didn't really die, kind of drowned with a body at the end of Part 1, is actually alive, and something doing with stands is making the way they get their stands is like some kind of sickness, but the mom isn't strong enough to survive it, so they need to kill Dio before I think the mom dies. And this is kind of just like one giant ass journey going from the start of Japan all to where they think Dio is, which I don't know if they know exactly where he is, but I think he's somewhere.
He's in Cairo.
He's in Cairo, so it's basically one long ass road trip from there. From there, they kind of meet, then team up with what are these guys' names? I know one's John Pierre
and Polnareff.
There you go, Kakuin and Polnareff. I only just to give like an example to everyone, I only ever read the manga, so I don't know how any of these characters' names are pronounced.
Oh, that's okay. Because the dub pronounces them totally different to how I do, so people are going to get pissed this episode anyway.
All right, fine, fair enough. And they join up, they go find him, they fight a bunch of like stand users who are kind of, their stands are based off the tarot cards. They also meet a dog called Iggy, and they go all the way to fight Dio. And along the way, not everyone survives, as is tradition in a JoJo adventure. And the only ones I think left standing are Jotaro, Joseph, and Polnareff after they finally are able to beat Dio. But that's
Correct.
The very basics of Part 3.
Yeah, that's extremely bare bones. So we'll talk a little bit more about the important parts.
Yeah. Let's start. So I think we should start off with the JoJo for this JoJo, which is Jotaro.
Right. Fun fact, apparently in the dub, I didn't know this because I pronounce it Jotaro also. Apparently the way you're supposed to say it is Jotaro, like Totoro, like my neighbor Totoro, and I will never call him that.
Jotaro, oh.
Jotaro, Kujo. I'm not going to call him that. So yeah, Jotaro is a super divisive character. I don't know of anyone who like. Well, I guess that's not true because I am one of these people. But a lot of people, it's hard to like just kind of like him.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people who are like, he's the best Joestar. He's my favorite one. He's the Wolverine of JoJo. Or I fucking hate this guy.
That sounds about right. He's very
Yeah.
divisive.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that's unwarranted just because of the way he's written. Apparently, in universe, I had to Google this because I don't think they actually say it anywhere in the actual show. But the reason that he basically has no emotions is because he thinks he's very easy to read, and therefore he doesn't need to emote. Because if he did, it would be redundant, which is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. It's the stupidest thing ever. So, but yeah, so he's... So, what's the guy's name? I'm trying to say his name. And
Jotaro?
Araki. No,
Araki,
the
okay,
author.
my
Yeah.
bad.
He loves to make the previous Joestar opposite the one before him. But of course, the Joestar before him was goofy, fun, and extremely likable.
Yeah.
So to make the opposite of Joseph, you have Jotaro, who's not really... I wouldn't say he's unlikable, because I don't think he is. But he's very, like...
He's a delinquent.
standoffish. Well, Joseph was, too.
Yeah. But
But
like
he-
a different kind of, like, Joseph was more like the fun kind of trickster delinquent, where he's just full on, like, sort of Urameshi style delinquent. The kind that, like, when you see in Japanese anime is the one that kind of are standing by their legs and have their hands down, that kind of delinquent.
Yeah, he's very, like, drinks beer, fuck off, bitch, like, shit.
He's basically a Yakuza villain.
Pretty much, yeah. And I mean, you get to like him a bit more as the series goes along.
Yeah.
But one thing that a lot of people don't like about him, and it kind of bugs me about him too, is his ability to solve every situation seemingly with little difficulty.
Yeah, he does
Like-
have that.
So he's extremely smart for some reason. I have no idea why. They don't really talk about it, but he clearly is because he solves every problem.
Yeah.
Like he's fighting the guy whose stand like eats you. You know the yellow goop? I forget
Yes,
which one
yeah.
that is. I think that's Temperance.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and he immediately figures out how to beat it, like without he gets it on his hand and he tries to burn it off and it doesn't work, and then he tries to freeze it off and he doesn't work, and then he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll just fucking beat you to death," and that's what the solution ends up being. Like 90% of the time, is Jotaro's like, "I got to figure out how to solve this problem." Shit, I didn't solve the problem, but that's okay because all I have to do is beat you until you die, and then the problem will solve itself.
Yeah, and I think that's also kind of the problem with... some of that also has to come into the fact that his stand, which is Star Platinum, like a lot of stands usually have these really cool and weird abilities. Jotaro's is just, it can really punch hard.
It's really fast and it punches hard as shit.
Yeah. He's
That's...
At
At one point, they're fighting a stand who has teeth made of diamonds, and Star Platinum shatters them all. So yeah, he punches really hard.
Yeah, that's the basics of it. But I think it's because he has such a basic kind of like a template for what a stand is. Like the introduction to what a stand can be. Like it shows like, okay, it's like this other form and it's really powerful. And that's
Yeah, he definitely has, until he gets the power to copy whatever the fuck Dio does ever.
yeah.
He's extremely vanilla in his skill set. But then he's still like the forefront of all the action, and I mean it's JoJo, and so the lead character is always at the forefront of everything that's going on, no matter who it is. But by giving all these other characters these crazy powers, and then you give him punches really fucking hard as his power, it wears on you. It definitely wears on you after a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that being a real mood killer.
Yeah, the biggest one for me is the episode where Polnareff is fighting Alessi, the guy that can turn you into a child.
Mm-hmm.
It's a full-length episode where he fights Alessi the entire time he's fighting him. He gets turned into a kid. This girl who's trying to take care of him gets turned into a fetus, and he's trying to save the fetus and beat the guy. So you try to beat him before the girl dies, because a fetus can't live outside of a uterus. And it's this huge fight, and he's pulling off these crazy tricks, and he's tricking him, and he's trying to fight him as a little kid. And then Jotaro just walks in and beats the shit out of the guy. And that's the end of the episode. So Polnareff works really hard for like half an hour trying to beat this guy with like his stand is like a baby, and because he's had his stand his whole life, so he's able to keep it when he turns into a kid. And then Jotaro shows up, and the guy turns Jotaro into a kid, and then he's like, haha, you're just a kid, and you didn't have Star Platinum when you were a kid, so that means you don't have it now. And then little kid Jotaro beats the shit out of him. He's like 7 years old, and he beats the shit, and he like completely unearned. He didn't do anything that episode. He just showed up. The only other time he's in that episode is when he looks at Kid Polnareff, and it's a kid that looks just like Polnareff wearing Polnareff's clothes, and he goes, hey kid, have you seen this guy named Polnareff? Okay, bye. And that's it. And then he shows up and saves the day. And there's so many moments that I feel like, oh, this character should have done that, but he doesn't. It's just Jotaro.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. I don't know, the way you mention it, that's kind of the reason why I like Jotaro, is that he's literally just, he's so simple-minded. He's like kind of like the closest thing to like, he's not like a pure boxer, but he's kind of just that, because that's all he really does. I don't think he really throws out a kick that often. Like, I think the only time he kicks is when he's fighting Dio. There you go. Like, he doesn't even use his legs half the time. He just kind of like stands there and goes yar dazi, or what I forget what it's translated as, but you know the good grief apparently is what they say in the dub. He goes good grief, which is a real good Charlie Brown like move. Yeah, he's the grown up Charlie Brown. Yeah, he's like the grown up Charlie Brown that just got tired of everyone's shit and got super buff. And I know it's kind of a Goku thing. A lot of people say this about Goku. But in Dragon Ball, everyone's powers are the same. And everyone's skill set is the same. There's not like... I know they try to say like, oh, Piccolo is the strategist. But it's like, fuck you. He's still just going to punch and kick the guy. He's not going to do anything different. But, you know, you have like... He'll sometimes fake out that his arm is like broken. And then he'll regrow it. That's like his number one tactic move. Yeah, that's his favorite move. And for some reason it works a lot. It works on every villain at least once. But you have like Kakyoin, who's like the smart one with the long range stand or the different skill set, and then you have Abdul with the fire, Polnareff, who is just Jotaro with a sword, so it's okay. But then like he's fighting the Darby brothers, and he's going against the one who plays poker. He like gambles for souls basically, and he beats Joseph, and he beats Polnareff, and then Jotaro somehow just wins by being badass. Like, that's how he wins. He's just so badass that the other guy loses. Because he tricks the guy into thinking that Star Platinum has been cheating the whole time. And if he loses, he'll have to tell Jotaro the secret to Dio's stand. And if he tells him the secret to Dio's stand, Dio will have him executed. So he has like a mental breakdown. But it's like that shouldn't have been a Jotaro moment, because it's one of the only fights in the entire series. There's like 2 or 3 that aren't just brute force. And that easily could have been a Joseph moment or a Kakyoin moment, and it's not. Because Jotaro has to beat everyone to death, and he has to be such a stone-cold badass that he drives another man insane. Yeah, you know, with a lot of the funny thing is that a lot of these complaints are similar to one would have a complaint of like a wrestler like Roman Reigns, where he shows up and he's just badass, but he takes all the glory when the glory shouldn't be mainly his. Like, there's other dudes on the team that are equally as cool or even cooler and should have that moment. But he just comes up and just takes the moments for himself. Yeah, and I mean, it's not to say that other characters don't get moments, because a lot of them do. Like, Kakyoin has a lot of good moments in this. Joseph gets kind of criminally underutilized. His best moment is going dick to dick with Abdul. With Abdul, yeah. He has a whole like weird episode with Abdul where they fight a stand user who uses magnetism. Yeah. And she keeps making him do like borderline gay shit for some reason. Yeah, because it was around that time. Their polarity is like opposite. Yes. So yeah, but they beat her, and that's probably his best fight. He doesn't really get very many. Polnareff gets a lot of attention in the later portions. I know one of the criticisms of it is a lot of people call it Polnareff's Bizarre Adventure because he gets such a huge focus in the latter half of the show. Really? I had never really thought about it that much. Yeah, well, you know, right around when they fight the Hanged Man, because Polnareff's trying to avenge his sister. Oh, yeah, that's true. They have that whole thing where they avenge his sister, and then he probably has... Because they put Kakyoin on a bus right when they get to Egypt.
and he's just gone for a while. And Polnareff kind of takes over as being like the number 2 of the group while Kakyoin's not there. But he gets a lot of plot focus, like the Anubis episode where he gets possessed and he fights Jotaro. Then you have the episode with Alessi where even though he got completely robbed of all the glory, he still did all the work. There's a lot of episodes like that with him, and then he kind of, I don't even think he really fades out.
The funny thing is that Polnareff is like, he just kind of exists throughout JoJo in a way that's kind of sad, actually. Especially if you know like later JoJo's and what eventually happens to him. Because
he does come back in a later JoJo part. We won't talk about it, but it's in part 5 for those of you who are curious.
Yes. Just wait for that anime adaptation and see what happened to your old buddy Polnareff.
One of these days. One of these days. But yeah, he has like a lot of plot focus. See, and I like Polnareff, but I know a lot of people that don't like him. I think I like him because he's vaguely Joseph-esque. Like, he's not cunning or like intelligent, but he's positive and he's I guess
nice
I don't know. He's goofy. Yeah, he's a goofy, nice guy. Yeah. But he has the most one-on-one fights other than Jotaro.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, to be fair, I think he probably has the most thing that is close to character development, because he's, like, starts off as, like, a very specific type of person, and by the end of it, he's kind of learned a bit more. He learns how to let go of his sister after, like, talking to, like, a fake copy of his sister, whereas Jotaro just kind of is Jotaro from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, he basically just is Jotaro, but it likes people more by the end of it.
Yeah, that's basically it. He's able to say that I like these people by the end. I have
friends now. Yeah, pretty much. Like, because, they always allude to, like, oh, Kakyoin and Jotaro are, like, they're the Joseph and Caesar of this, and it's like, I don't really see it. I know they're supposed to be, but you don't see that much of it because Jotaro has a very thin personality.
Yeah, definitely. I will also say that for Jotaro, I really like. I think maybe the introduction he has is maybe one of my favorite for JoJo introductions, just simply because he eventually explains why he's in there, and it's not because anyone put him in there; it's because he put himself in there because he was afraid like something bad was gonna happen.
So he thinks that his stand is a ghost that's possessing him.
Yeah, exactly. So he thinks that something's possessing him. So he's like, I need to go to jail for this. And the fact that like the police are like, we don't know how to get him out of here. He's just kind of in here now.
That's actually why Joseph is there. Is because Holly calls him and says Jotaro went to prison, but then you find out he put himself in there, and the police are like, we really need you to get him out of here.
We kind of don't want him here. He's just like standing there. The police are terrified of him.
Yeah. And then that's where the first stand battle happens in that same episode.
Yeah, it's between him and Avdol.
Right.
Who's using Magician's Red.
Yes, Fire Chicken.
Yes, exactly, the Fire Chicken.
Prototype Blaziken, basically.
Yeah, kind of.
Pretty much.
There's a lot of like prototypes in here, as is tradition with a lot of JoJo's. Like, this is basically where you get the entire idea for the Persona from Persona.
Yeah, like, the Persona franchise is literally just stands with a different name.
Exactly. And funny enough, Part 4, when we talk about it, is basically just Persona 4, just slightly done differently.
Yeah, Persona 4 did not even try, really.
No.
Now that I've seen Diamond is Unbreakable, Persona 4 did not try.
No,
it's the same thing.
It is 100% just like, and they wear that thing kind of on their sleeve, especially with like Persona Q. The Persona 4 team just comes out doing a JoJo.
They're doing JoJo poses. Yeah,
like that's just kind of what they are. And funny enough, now that JoJo is more known, they're able to be a little bit more like, okay, yeah, obviously.
They're certainly not trying to pull like the, oh, don't shame us card. They're very open about it.
Yeah, they're not pulling the fucking, what's his name, Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice.
Where it was like, my song's different because it's different from Under Pressure because theirs goes do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and then mine goes do-do-do-do-do-do. So it's two different things.
Completely different. Yeah, no, they're very open about the fact that it's just JoJo. But, so the return of Dio is probably my favorite part of Stardust Crusaders.
He's real good. It kind of makes you sad that he's not in a lot of it because it's an entire like adventure just to go see Dio.
To get to him, yeah. He has his moments where like you see him interact with his little like goon army.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, he only really shows up at the end. But God, he's great when he's on screen.
Yes. And it's also great because just in general, there's a lot of good things about Dio coming back. So if you're wondering how did Dio come back, he basically was able to succeed where you thought he failed at the end of part 1, where he was able to get the body of Jonathan. So
Yeah.
it makes basically part 1 a failure on Jonathan, making Jonathan the only JoJo to basically... Well, no, that's not true. The only, like, one of the few JoJos to basically fail in their mission. Because he basically...
Yeah, he's the only anime JoJo so far that has failed.
Let's just say that far. Yeah. As far as that. Not to say which one. You'll have to figure that out whenever
You'll have to
they
wait
get
for
it.
that anime adaptation.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so he comes back. He's got Jonathan's body. That's why they're getting why all the Joestars are getting stands.
Mhm.
That's why Holly's dying, is because he got a stand with Jonathan's body. So now they all have one for some reason,
Yeah.
and it's killing Holly because she doesn't have the strength of will to resist it.
Because she's like the opposite of every single JoJo that's just very gentle. She's like
Yeah,
not
she's extremely like borderline arena.
non-violent.
Yeah. Like, Jotaro treats her like shit all the time, and she's like, yay! I love you too, son. So,
Eat shit. I love you too, son.
pretty much, yeah, she just giggles at everything.
Yeah. Which is really... It's really silly, especially when you see Jotaro does not pull any punches in his, like, insults. And she just
No.
kind of goes like, oh, that's silly Jotaro. Which kind of brings to mention, like, where's his father in this situation? Because I don't think he's ever mentioned.
Apparently, I had to Google this also. He is a fucking, like, rock star or something. I forget. He's a musician of some sort, I think. And he's, like, out doing musician shit. And that's why he's not there.
Okay. I think I remember that in the manga. I think they mentioned that, like, briefly. Somewhere in, like, one of the many pages, as is tradition with JoJo things, is that sometimes they like to tell you stuff, like, in between chapters, where they go, like, if you didn't understand this, well, here's an entire chart to help you understand what just happened. It's like...
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the return of Dio is great. I don't know how we got so far off topic of that, but yeah, Dio is phenomenal in this. He's probably my favorite part altogether. Is when they start fighting him, because he's so fucking ridiculous. He literally forces a senator to be his chauffeur, which drives the senator insane. And then they're getting away. They're in a car chase with the JoJo team, and they're getting away. So he throws the senator's body at their car, so that the car crashes.
Oh yeah, he does a lot of good. This is where, besides like Rai, this is where a lot of the other Dio stuff comes in. This is where Zeroldo comes in. This is where the fucking steamroller moment comes in.
Yes, the road roller. Yeah, so the only part 1 Dio memes are Kono Dioda and the Ri scream. But everything else comes from Stardust Crusaders, and it's great.
Yeah, his like fascination with just hella knives everywhere.
Yes.
Like,
so his stand is the world, which, given its name, it's the strongest one. In the series, anyway.
In the Tarot as well. The world is considered the strongest of all the suites, I think.
Yeah, and so it gives him the ability to stop time, which eventually Jotaro gets because it's the only way to beat someone that can stop time is if you also can stop time. Otherwise, you shouldn't win.
Yeah, kind of. Unless you're Goldo and you just kind of suck.
Or you're fucking Jiren, I guess. But
that too.
Story for another time.
And Hit.
Well, Hit is the time stopper in this scenario.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
But, so... Yeah, he can stop time, and he nukes the shit out of most of everybody pretty easily, except for Jotaro, because, again, Jotaro's just that badass. They lampshade it with some shit like, we have similar types of stands. But it's like, apparently that means they have the same powers.
Yeah. Apparently so. It doesn't really make sense, but you just kind of go with it.
No, they don't really explain it, nor do you ever see Jotaro actually activate the time stop. Because Dio is monologuing, and then he's like, wait a minute, I can't move. And Jotaro's like, yeah, I also can stop time. And then he beats the shit out of him.
Yep, that sounds about right.
That's about how it ends, yeah, but the villain cast in this one is a lot bigger than the last couple.
It's crazy big.
It's super huge. I mean, you have a lot of one-off villains, but then you have a lot of more, like, I don't know if arc villain is the right word, but you have a lot of repeats.
Yeah.
You've got Anyaba, the witch. You've got Whole Horse, who, fun fact, was originally going to be a good guy.
Really?
Yes. So, I mean, I guess I don't need to say spoiler alert because everyone knows we just spoil everything.
Yeah.
Abdul, quote unquote, dies.
Mm-hmm. I remember
And
this.
they bring him back later. Well, originally he was actually going to die right there, and he was going to get replaced by Whole Horse, which I have no idea how that's going to work because Whole Horse is the one that would have killed him in this situation.
Yeah, doesn't really make sense.
That's why Whole Horse is generally a bit more comedic and likable than the rest of the villains, as he originally was written as a good guy, and then they were like, well, I kind of like Abdul, so
I'll keep him
gonna
in.
bring it back instead.
To create some weird bullshit reason for him to be still alive.
Yeah, it's that he leaned back a little bit, and so the bullet didn't go into his head, it just grazed his head.
Yeah, but he still has like that marking on his skin, which makes it look real disgusting.
Yeah, he's got like a big scar on his forehead from where the bullet like grazed him.
It's like, oh, why Abdul?
Yeah, and Abdul was not, and then he doesn't really. He helps in the fight where he comes back, and then he just kind of dies again later and does it without really doing anything.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But it was a different time back then. I'm just glad that there was someone brown on that team. Very progressive for its time.
Well, you say that until you remember the scene right at the beginning where they go to Holly's house and Joseph snaps his fingers for Abdul to get the bags.
Shit. Like I said, a different time. Man.
But yeah, no, the team is pretty multinational. Joseph is an American. Jotaro is Japanese. Kakyoin is Japanese. Polnareff is French. And Abdul is Indian?
Yeah, I believe so.
I believe? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know they go through India at one point, and Abdul is like loving it, and everyone else is like, "Oh my god, this place sucks."
Bunch of haters.
And then they get a little girl who is like, I don't even know. She's some other race that she's on the team for a little bit. Just gets in the way.
She's like the race of like vagabond or something.
I want to say she's like Latin, but I don't know.
I'll accept that. I'll take her.
She's either Latin or like Middle Eastern, one of the two.
Spain. She's a Spaniard.
Yeah. Maybe. I have no idea.
Iggy, who is from Boston.
Yes.
As where all terriers are from.
As we're all Boston Terriers. Iggy is also a great character. I know a lot of people think that he's annoying. I don't know how you can not like Iggy. I don't know how it's possible.
Yeah, I also like Iggy. He's just like he's just a dumb little dog.
Yeah, he's like a dog that has a stand, and if an animal has a stand, it means they have human intelligence because I guess you have to have a stand. And he's just a dick. And he's a dick on purpose because he just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. Until the very end for poor Iggy.
Until he gets his foot cut off, and then he's like, all right, fuck Dio then. And then they go fight Dio. But up until then, he does not give a fuck about anything. And so he just shows up, like, because he's off on his own, too. They're all in Egypt together. But Iggy just fucks off and is just around. So, like, he looks at Abdul and Joseph, like, almost dying. Like, desperately trying not to die. And then he literally slow-mo turns around and just walks away. And he goes and steals a dude's sandwich, and he eats the sandwich while Joseph is, like, begging for his life.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. He's real enjoyable. I think that's maybe Iggy is also like the Jotaro, where he's kind of divisive to some people.
Yeah, I think also one of the funniest things about Iggy in general is that he's, like, the most horrifying looking animal ever, and then, like, the more friendly he gets, he becomes cuter.
Yeah, that's true. There's, like, a definite change from Iggy from the beginning to Iggy at the end. It's like...
Yeah, beginning Iggy is like a monster.
Oh, yeah, he's terrifying to look at.
Yeah, and then later on, like heroic Iggy is, like, cute.
Yeah.
And they allude to that in the old fighting game, the old JoJo fighting game on the Dreamcast?
Yes.
Apparently Iggy's alt costume is ugly Iggy.
Man, that's perfect. I remember that.
That's so great.
That game's real good. If
It's a great game, yeah.
If I remember right, that one of the stages is also the prison that
Yes.
Jotaro was in the beginning.
Yes, for no real reason.
Yep. Make that an entire fighting stage. Why not? I still
Yes.
go for it.
But alright, I guess we should talk about some bad stuff.
I also want to mention I just want to mention them because I remember liking them when they showed up, even though they do nothing. In terms of villains, I also like the Oingo Boingo.
Oingo Boingo.
twins.
I knew that's who you were going to bring up. I knew you were going to do that as soon as you said that.
As soon as I said they don't do anything, I think this is one of the few examples. I think they do it later on, maybe some in part 4, of a villain that is so inept that they literally don't do anything of consequence at all.
So the Oingo Boingo brothers, the younger one, his stand is a comic book that predicts the future,
Yes.
and the older one, he can just shapeshift. I forget what he has to do to shapeshift, but he can switch it.
I think he has to touch a person's belongings to do that.
something like that.
Yeah.
But so the comic book tells them what's going to happen, but then in the process of making it happen, they fuck themselves over all the time. Like they look in the book and they're like, "Oh, a bomb is going to go off and kill Jotaro. Okay, let's get these bombs and then we'll kill Jotaro with them." But then the guy shapeshifts his face into Jotaro's face, and he's like, "Oh shit, it meant me," and then he fucking blows up.
And the great thing is that they happen I think Joseph and Abdul are there, and they just kind of look like, the hell was that? They give the most okay, sure, that just happened, I guess.
And then Iggy plays the part too. And then when the guy who looks like Jotaro at that point realizes that he's played himself and he's gonna fucking die, he throws the bomb out of the car, and Iggy fucking catches it, puts it back in the car.
I really like them. They really bring in a nice, different kind of pace, because this is one of those villains that doesn't suffer from the Jotaro beats them, because literally they just beat themselves.
They beat themselves, yeah. And then the younger one actually comes back later with Whole Horse, replacing his older brother.
Oh, yeah. Yes, he does. He does.
And for those of you who watched the anime, well, I know you said you haven't, but they have their own credit sequence.
Really?
Yes, it's drawn entirely in the style of the comic book that the kid has.
Oh,
And it plays its own music. It plays the Oingo Boingo Brothers theme.
that's so good.
It's great. And then when Whole Horse comes back, they do it again, but they replace the brother with Whole Horse, and they call it the Oingo Whole Horse team.
Oh, man.
It's amazing. It's really great.
Yeah, they're a really good joke. I also just like to think that, when Dio was recruiting his army, he looked at the Oingo Boingos, and then he was like, yeah, put him to the team.
Fuck it. Yeah, hey, you have stands. That's good enough.
I mean, yeah. We have, Vanilla Ice over here, so it's going to be fine. We can let the...
Yeah, Vanilla... I don't know why they didn't just have Vanilla Ice do everything from the beginning, because that dude's busted.
Well, it's the similar reason why in Mortal Kombat you just don't fight Goro from the beginning. You need to have a setup.
Some fodder.
Exactly. You need to prove yourself worthy to him so that you can fight him before you have to fight Shang Tsung.
Yeah, so Vanilla Ice's power is that he goes into another dimension, so you can't hurt him, and then if you touch his other dimension, you fucking die.
Yeah, he's way above everyone else, I think, on in terms of villain team. He's better than the fucking orangutan whose only ability is summoning a boat.
Yeah, so the stands in part 3 are fucking crazy. So just some MVPs off the top of my head. One of them is a beetle that rips out your tongue. That's all it does.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is a fucking boat. And the stand user is a giant orangutan that is a pervert.
Yeah.
Because it reads a lot of porn on its fucking boat, on its psychic boat.
It's named Forever. It also has a little hat too, if I remember correctly.
It has a whole ship captain's uniform.
God damn that orangutan. I think I remember you almost losing it at the orangutan.
Dude, I couldn't handle it. There's this painfully slow scene where the small little girl is taking a shower, and the orangutan comes in the shower and corners her in the shower. It's this is so uncomfortable. And it's played completely straight too.
Yeah.
They don't play it for laughs at all. they're literally like, yeah, this orangutan is gonna rape this child.
It is freaky.
It is extremely uncomfortable, and thankfully Jotaro shows up and beats the shit out of him, as he is off to do.
He is summoned because he heard there's a orangutan on board. He's like, I'm gonna punch that.
He heard that the plot information was happening somewhere, so he went there and beat the fuck out of it.
This is Chekhov's orangutan. You don't show an orangutan unless it's gonna be punched in the face later on.
Yeah, but God, that was so uncomfortable. Because none of them are like that creepy. Some of them are. Like Enyabuz is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're not. So they have this orangutan whose only power is he makes a boat. And it's like the most unsettling shit ever. Because also, for some reason, he's a rapist.
Yeah. I like to think that in the final 3 people to be added to the Dio team, one of them was the orangutan, the other was the Oingo Boingos, and the last one was Pet Shop. And Dio was just like, yes, I approve all these people. These are good
Signing
soldiers.
off on all of these?
Yeah.
I'm signing off on the orangutan whose only power is to make a boat. Because at some point in the future, someone is going to be on the water, and we're going to be fighting them.
Dio, sir, are you sure about this orangutan? Listen, they have to cross the ocean to get to me. I want this orangutan on the team.
I want the orangutan on the team. He's got a whole boat.
Do you see his style? Give that man a hat.
And yeah, it works.
Yeah,
Pet Shop, of course, for some reason is named Pet Shop, because I guess that's just a song that's vaguely similar to animals.
I want to say it's related to Pet Shop Boys. I don't know. It's a real
It is,
name,
I believe.
though.
But yeah, he's a fucking falcon.
Yeah.
That makes ice. Yeah, he fights the dog, and he loses.
Yeah, he's not the best.
No, he loses to a small terrier.
That's some other ones. Those are like the ones that pop off. But there are a lot of them that are just kind of like very situational.
Yeah, like the guy whose stand is his stand goes into your brain, you feel any pain that he feels, but you feel it worse.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that's for any of you who've seen the meme of Jotaro letting go of the piece of paper with his signature on it. That's because he beats the shit out of that guy, and then he leaves his signature on him.
Man.
Yeah, that's a good beatdown. Because this guy's a huge piece of shit, and he's got his stand in Joseph's brain. So he's like, if you beat me to death with Star Platinum, it'll also kill Joseph. So I'm going to make you do a bunch of embarrassing shit, because you have to listen to me, or else I'll get Joseph killed. And then Kakyoin and Polnareff save Joseph. And so Jotaro beats the shit out of this guy. It's like 35 straight seconds of just the Ora punches. Like, you have to go and watch the episode for this, because it's literally him like, Jotaro, please don't beat the shit out of me. And Jotaro's like, no, fuck you. And it's like, because most of his beatdowns are like a 10-second beating, and the guy's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
This one's like almost a straight minute of him just getting fucked by Star Platinum. Man. And then Star Platinum punches him and sends him hurling through a building. And that's it.
Yeah, for some of that's the one benefit of the anime, is that you're really able to absorb the auras. Where someone like me who read it through the manga, like, I appreciate that there's entire pages dedicated to this man yelling ora, and punching a person. But sometimes you just need the animation to really let you know how long it took.
The anime is really well done, too, because there's a lot of, like, you don't notice them right away jokes until you kind of pay it. So, like, the sun, the stand, that's literally just a fucking sun.
Yeah.
That's another good one. There's a song that plays in every JoJo episode when they're about to beat the bad guy, like when they turn the tables on him and Jotaro's about to finish him off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because they beat the sun by Jotaro just picking up a rock and throwing it at the guy and knocking him unconscious, and it takes like 2 seconds. So when Star Platinum comes out to throw the rock, they play that song, but it's on fast forward. So it plays super fast. It's really funny.
You should watch this anime. Apparently I should watch this anime as well.
Really good. Yeah, because they play it. It's like you might have heard the song just from like JoJo memes, but it's like the dan 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 like song.
Yeah.
But then when Star Platinum comes up to pick up the rock, it's like dan 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 dan, and then the guy's dead. It's fucking great.
That's hilarious. That's like some editing that That's the one thing I also really like about that anime is that it really feels like it was given to people who care about JoJo and understand its kind of sense of humor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So. It's definitely made. Like, I love the menacing, like the kanji that comes up on the screen for the sound effects and everything.
Yeah.
It's 100% made with care for the series, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, we kind of went into that one, but what were you gonna say before we went into the whole villain stuff? If the start of the goes.
Yeah, I said I guess we should probably talk about some negatives because there are some. I generally really like Stardust Crusaders. I know a lot of people that don't really like Stardust Crusaders, which I think that's a little bit like hindsight not liking it, because Stardust Crusaders is like the Final Fantasy VII of JoJo. It's what made JoJo popular.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
This is the one I think that are.
Yeah, that's what like Jotaro is 100% the Wolverine of JoJo. He is the reason that people watched JoJo at first.
He's the reason that JoJo was able to have an anime eventually, because literally for the longest time, he was the dude. He was the...
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, there was an anime before the David Productions one that we're talking about right now, and it was just Stardust Crusaders, and it was in like 1993, and that's the only one they did.
Yeah.
Because Stardust Crusaders was crazy popular. So it comes off to me nowadays as one of those people who's like, Ocarina of Time isn't even that good. And it's like, congratulations, it's 2018. Of course Ocarina of Time is not that good anymore.
Yeah.
But have some respect.
It's very similar to something like, I guess for, it's something similar that happens to Dragon Ball Z, but not as on big of a scale. Where a lot of people look down on Dragon Ball Z because prefer Dragon Ball over it. And I'm not saying like you should prefer one over the other, but a lot of times the criticisms for Dragon Ball Z comes from just the fact that Dragon Ball Z is the thing that got it popular.
Yeah, there's a lot of it.
Yeah,
and I mean, it happens to anything.
Yeah.
That is like, because Final Fantasy VII gets it, where it was the most popular Final Fantasy. I mean, it probably still is, realistically. But then, you get a lot of people like, it's not even that good, blah, 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 blah. And, you get a lot of that shit for anything that gets popular.
He never goes to the moon. What's even the point of Final Fantasy VII?
Exactly. He never even goes to the moon once. Actually, that's only partially true, because they do go to space.
All right, fair enough. Close enough. Moon adjacent. I'll accept it.
Moon adjacent. Yeah, but so Stardust Crusaders does have some issues. Its pacing in the beginning is really bad, I think.
Yeah.
It has a lot of Monster of the Week kind of thing, where it almost comes off as not a coherent story. Because, in Battle Tendency, they're like, oh shit, we're doing this thing, and now we're fighting these guys, and now we're learning Hamon, so we can keep fighting these guys. In Stardust Crusaders, it's just every episode's a different guy that they have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And while that doesn't really go away, necessarily, ever, pretty much, it changes a lot when it transitions from Stardust Crusaders to Battle in Egypt, which technically are two different things, I guess.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, so I mean, apparently, technically, the journey from Japan to Egypt is called Stardust Crusaders, and then once they land in Egypt to the end, it's called Battle in Egypt, but I just call it all Stardust Crusaders.
Yeah, it's just easier to remember it that way.
Yeah, yeah. But especially before they get to Egypt, the stands are also, like... Some of them are really cool, and the powers are really cool. Like Enyuba's stand, that's just fog, and if you get cut, the fog goes into your body and it controls you like a puppet. Like, that's really cool. Then you have the fucking stand that is a beetle, and the beetle bites your tongue. And that's the bad guy.
Yeah. It was a lot of, like, trying to figure out what was... It was a lot of, like, putting spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah. And it gets kind of hard. It's almost like a Tournament of Power type deal where, like, it gets kind of hard to get attached to these villain characters because you only see them for about 10 minutes and they're gone. That's why the ones that people like a lot tend to be the ones that they're either extremely remarkable, like Vanilla Ice, or reoccur, like Whole Horse and the Oingo Boingo Brothers.
Yeah, or have a cool name, like Pet Shop.
Like Pet Shop the Falcon.
Exactly.
Although I think a lot of his popularity came from the video game where he was fucking broken.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Find popularity where you can. Pet Shop.
Right. Hey, however you get it, man. No publicity is bad publicity.
Exactly. But yeah, there is a definite feel like there's a reason why a lot of people go like Dio's the main showstopper, and he's not even from part 3. Like he's a character from part 1, and then when he shows up, he basically kind of steals the show.
Oh, completely. Yeah, even from the protagonists, he is without a doubt like. So imagine part 1 Dio, and I mean most people like part 1 Dio. I don't know anyone who doesn't like him. He's part 1 Dio like turned up to 11.
Yeah, for some reason, almost losing has driven him insane.
Yeah, so like he's completely like the most extra character from anything ever. He's so over the top and like, but not in an obnoxious way.
Yeah,
because something can be over the top, and you're like, Jesus, stop. But when Dio fucking slow-mo screams the world in English, it's the best thing.
Yes, it is. And
it really is.
For some reason, a lot of it feels like also he's kind of just having fun with it. He feels like a person who literally knows there's no challenge to him. So he's just kind of basically trolling people. Like, he doesn't really need to drop a steamroller on somebody. He just wants to.
Yeah, a lot of it is just, it feels like him fucking around. Like, they get a truck, and it's Kakyoin and Joseph are in the truck, and they're running away from Dio. And Dio's could easily just chase them. Mm-hmm. But he breaks off the door of a limousine. He makes the senator get in the front of the limousine and drive him. And when the senator's like, I'm a senator, I'm not going to do that, he keeps fucking trolling the guy, because the guy tries to run out of the car, so he stops time, grabs him, puts him back in the car, and closes the door over and over again. Until it drives the guy insane.
Yeah, and he's just so fun whenever he's on there, and I think he's in a way he's the best thing about it, and is also really showing of like some of the things where part 3 kind of just falls apart, and that some of the characters can so easily be overshadowed by one. Yeah,
it definitely leaves you wanting more of him.
Yeah,
and I guess it's because he's the goal already. They don't need to establish him as one. And I guess they felt like, oh, they already know Dio. Let's put these other people in. But these other people, there's so many, and they get like no time.
Yeah.
Like even the guy who killed Polnareff's sister, you don't get enough time to really hate him. Other than Polnareff is like, he fucking killed my sister, man.
Yeah. And even someone like Joseph, who is from part 2, is so different and not like there are parts of him that
borderline unrecognizable as a character.
At that point, he's just basically he may as well just be the announcer on the side yelling out like catchphrases as stuff happens around him. Because he
and I mean I know it's 50 years have passed, so obviously he's going to be a little bit different. But there's very little of him. He's one of my least favorite parts of, despite being my favorite JoJo. He is I think he's really poorly used.
Yeah.
Because he has his moments, like there's the one episode where the enemy stand is like a wart that grows on you that he beats. And he has his moments where he does his cleverness and he does his your next line is catchphrase and he wins the fight. But his stand is completely worthless.
Yeah, Hermit Purple is worthless. And then also, unfortunately, Haman, which was already dubious in its power, has been basically nerfed to 0.
Yeah, it's completely useless. And his stand is completely useless. And they don't try to really get him to do anything. And I mean, like, he's old. He's like, God, what is he, 70? Probably?
He's 70, but he's pretty fit for 70
but he's ripped. Yeah, that's my point, is that he's, like, jacked.
Like, crazy jacked.
Yeah, and so, they don't use him very well. And again, I know that in JoJo, very rarely do the background characters get a whole lot of time to shine. Mm-hmm. Like, Will Zeppeli and Caesar, Will Zeppeli didn't even get one fight where he did anything.
He basically had his one moment was when Ario Speedwagon put his hands on his chest.
On his flaming hot abs.
Yes, that was his basic moment.
And then Caesar got his one fight where he got his one moment of glory where he would have beaten Wamu if he wasn't an idiot, and then he dies.
Yeah.
And part 3 get it a little bit better, but they're just not utilized, especially Joseph, who was a pre-existing character, and you didn't really need to build him up any. You could have used him a lot in the earlier portions while you were still building Kakyoin and Polnareff, who had just sort of shown up. Mm-hmm. But they really don't.
It feels like by the end, he was supposed to be someone to make you have... He was basically kind of the role Krillin plays in Namek, when except for he actually gets to live, where Krillin got fucking smoked. but like near the end when they're fighting
Well,
Dio,
he almost got smoked.
he almost got smoked, but they were trying to do the similar thing of like, well, this is Joseph, and the last thing you want to see him die by is by Dio. So you understand, like, oh, that's enough to make maybe Joseph go angry and then beat him down. But it's really only there for... It never feels like him and Joseph have a relationship that would feel that way, where, again, maybe it's also because it's hard to read Jotaro at all. But it feels like the relationship isn't between him and Jotaro, it's between me and Joseph. I don't want to see him go.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
So, bad writing on some of the characters. Maybe not even bad writing, it's just underutilizing some of the characters that should have been utilized more. Because, like, the only reason Vanilla Ice is memorable is because he kills 2 of the Stardust Crusaders, and his powers are fucking ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing notable about him other than the fact that he actually was a 2-episode fight instead of 1.
Yeah, that's kind of basically it. Some other negatives I'll say is a lot of stuff when you go into old things, is that sometimes some things just don't hold up super well. As you mentioned, Jotaro telling Avidal to get the bags, that's pretty bad. The rapey orangutan never held up even back then.
Yeah, I don't think the rapey orangutan was ever like, oh, that was good.
We'll never be in a situation where a rapey orangutan is okay.
Especially when you double down on it and you make his target like 12.
Yes, that's double bad. So just some stuff like that is like old stuff that is just gotten worse with age. That's the kind of stuff that will make you feel... The good thing is that at least the episode will end and something else will be different. But, you know, old things, they don't age well.
Yeah, not always. That is for sure. So, I don't want to say Jotaro is a negative because I don't think he is, because I generally like him.
Mm-hmm.
But you can definitely tell that when we start getting into Diamond is Unbreakable, that they kind of realized that Jotaro pushed a lot of the other protagonists into a corner. Because they tend not to do that as much in Diamond. Josuke, who is the lead in Diamond, does still do most of the work.
Yeah.
But everyone else feels like they get a little bit more to them.
Yeah, I'll say I remember definitely more fights between everyone else in... Like, from other characters get definitely their shine-on moments.
Especially Koichi gets a lot of time.
Yeah, he does.
To do a lot of things.
But I think he's kind of one of those toss-ups where, like, if you can enjoy the character of just this crazy, stupid badass, then he works out. But if you just can't get your mind behind, like, this, I'm going to say he's 16 at this point.
I believe he's a senior, so I think he'd be close to 18.
This 18-year-old, extremely buff boy that has the answer to everything in literally a couple seconds.
And the answer to everything is almost always punch it.
Yeah, and he's able to learn, basically, like, if Goku saw the Kamehameha and was able to do it times 100 immediately after seeing it, that's kind of what Jotaro is. Because he's able to look at the world and be like, I bet I could do that. And then eventually he just goes, I can't do that.
So... Joseph tells Jotaro the power of the world is to stop time. So that's the big thing for a while is trying to figure out what Dio's stand does. Because they always say you should never fight an enemy stand if you don't know what it does. Even though they almost exclusively do that.
Yeah, all the time.
They almost only do that. But they still say it's important to know what a stand does before you try to fight it. So the big thing for a long time was trying to figure out what Dio's stand did. Eventually they find out. Kakyoin dies to find out. So he figures out what it is right as Dio puts his fist through his chest. He shoots the clock tower with his final emerald splash for Joseph to figure it out. He tells Jotaro, and then Joseph, air quote, dies right as he tells Jotaro. And Jotaro has a moment that I can't tell if it's really stupid or really cool. When he starts walking toward Dio after Dio throws a knife into Joseph's throat, and Dio's like, oh, he told you what the world does and you're still getting closer. And Jotaro's response is, well, if I don't get closer to you, I can't kick your ass. And I don't know if that's the best or the worst line ever.
It's kind of in between.
It's really... Yeah.
with everything imagining with the scene set up, I could see that being a great moment, but then taken out of context, it could be a little bit like, you silly.
Yeah, it's super normie out of context, but it's pretty great in the episode. In general, like, I feel like it's kind of cheating to say this, but I feel like you ever get to a point where JoJo's taking itself too seriously that you've lost.
Mhm.
Because I think it's just not written that way. Like, Jotaro is modeled after Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Like, it's not supposed to be, like, extremely hardcore serious. Like, this isn't Full Metal Alchemist, you know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of it is kind of. I think the best way of seeing it is kind of similar to the old Tales from the Crypt comics, where a lot of them were kind of like in theory serious subjects, but they were done in a very pulpy way. So I think that's kind of similar to the way like JoJo is, where there's a lot of serious stuff that happens, but it's all done in like a very kind of pulp pop kind of way. That's like not supposed
it's
to be
very
super
stylized.
serious. Yeah.
And I think that's good. See, I think JoJo's one of, like, the best series I've ever seen anime-wise.
It's got a lot of style.
Yeah, it has a ton of style, but it never takes itself to be, like, this extremely tight world of, like, it's not super deep, basically, is what I guess what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not trying to be. It's just a fun story. And I think that's probably as far as you should go with it. If you're looking for deeper meaning in the words of Jotaro Kujo, you're not going to have a great time.
No, you're not going to find it.
No, but it has some moments. Like, they do defeat Dio because Jotaro's like, well, I can stop time too. So he does. He punches Dio so hard that he fucking explodes. I don't know how.
It's the power
Literally.
of Haman, finally.
Finally.
Back.
Literally, Dio's stand the world kicks at Jotaro, and Star Platinum punches the world's leg, and half of his body fucking explodes. And so Dio dies. They take his body out and they leave it in the sun so that it will disintegrate in the sun and he'll be gone forever. They perform
Wait, one moment. Because your mic is acting up all funky.
Any better?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay.
Okay, you're good.
So-
Continue with your point.
So anyway, they do beat Dio because Jotaro's like, fuck it. I'm done fighting you. I'm just going to use your power. But the fight with Dio is great. It sets a lot of precedents that JoJo never touches again, like stand users being able to fly.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can fly in this fight, but it's fine. Jotaro does a lot of cool strategic things, like he uses Star Platinum to stop his heart, so that when Dio tries to hear for his heartbeat, he'll think Jotaro's dead, so he can surprise attack him. He puts a magnet on Dio's arm, and then he holds one in his hand, so when he stops time, the magnet will pull it. That's the strongest magnet ever, by the way, because no magnet should be able to do this. But it pulled his hand, so it looked like he was moving in the stop time, and it made Dio scared. All in all, it's a great fight. It's one of my favorite anime fights, is Jotaro versus Dio.
Yeah, it's real good.
Yeah.
And I'll say by the end of this, Jotaro is so strong that they spend countless other JoJo's trying to just make him less strong.
Yeah, a lot of Part 4 is spent just with Jotaro making sure he's not part of the plot.
Yeah, and also kind of telling you, like, I'm slightly I'm not as strong as I was when I was 18.
Yeah, he keeps saying that he's not as strong as he was when he fought Dio, but he still solves every problem in like a second, so I don't really believe that.
Yeah, he's the most, like, he's still extremely overpowered, but that just shows you how crazy strong he is. He, like, levels up in between the Dio fight. It is ridiculous. He gets, like, even stronger throughout it.
Yeah, yeah. So in Stardust Crusaders, and apparently in the video game they talk about this too, is that he goes to the Part 4 timeline as Part 3, and they're like all in awe as how powerful he is.
Huh.
But Jotaro's really broken, and he stays that way for a long time. But they have a nice moment at the end where they say goodbye to Polnareff, and Polnareff decides he has to go back to France because even though Joseph says, "Why don't you come with me and stay with me?" he says, "No, I gotta go back to my homeland," etc. And they're on the plane to go back, and Jotaro pulls a photo out of his coat that was the photo that the team took right when they all finally got together, which was Kakyoin, Abdul, Joseph, Jotaro, Polnareff, and Iggy.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Kakyoin, Abdul, and Iggy do not make it. So Jotaro has this sort of like reminiscent look at the photo and remembers all of the adventure as the plane takes off to go home. It's a sweet little moment at the end. And also the ending song for the anime changes, because at the beginning it's Walk Like an Egyptian.
Yeah.
and it changes to Last Train Home, which apparently that is a song.
That is a song. It's from someone.
I've never heard the song other than the JoJo version of it. I don't know if it has lyrics. I've only heard the instrumental version.
No, it's 100% that's just the song.
Oh, great. Well, it's a really good song, and it really fits the latter half of Stardust Crusaders. So I would say that I have very positive feelings towards Stardust Crusaders, but almost all of them are for the battle in Egypt. I think that's where Stardust Crusaders really is head and shoulders above a lot of other JoJo stuff.
Yeah, and I do like that, this is something we mentioned previously, but in case someone needs to be reminded, is that all the end songs are kind of like what inspired that specific arc, because the Araki takes a lot of inspiration from like music, so that's why...
You haven't noticed from characters named Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, and Pet Shop, is that... there's a lot of inspiration, so that's why Walk Like an Egyptian is one of the ending songs, because that's what helped inspire that kind of arc. And it's funny because you can go like, oh, yeah, because they're walking along in Egypt. But Last Train Home also makes a lot of sense, just because by the end of it, it really does feel like this crazy journey has happened, and a lot of shit has happened along the way. And
yeah, I think Stardust Crusaders... Oh, also on the topic of the end songs, Araki got to pick all of them himself, by the way, which is awesome.
It's fitting. It's real good.
Yeah. I think Stardust Crusaders, part of the reason I like it so much is it's one of the only parts that actually feels like an adventure. Like Phantom Blood, they pretty much just follow Dio around for like a couple episodes and then they kick the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Battle Tendency kind of has its moments where they're like, we're in this country now, but it never really hits you that like they're actually on this journey. Whereas Stardust Crusaders really does feel like you get really attached to them as the journey goes on.
Yeah, it's the old style Indiana Jones, where like they're going around, zipping across the nations on an adventure.
Yeah, yeah, and the party definitely, you get very attached to them because it's a lot longer than the previous parts.
Oh yeah, way longer.
Especially the anime, and the anime I think part 1 and 2 combined for like 20 episodes tops, and I think Stardust Crusaders alone is longer than that.
Yep. Part 1 and Part 2 are not as long as Part 3 in terms of anime, I think.
Yeah, I think Part 3 is longer than the first two put together. But it's great. It's really good. If you have some negative shit to say about it, I guarantee it's going to be about the first portions almost always. Because the latter half... we talk about JoJo pulling your heartstrings a lot, just by really punching the gut, like with Caesar. And boy, Stardust Crusaders does not let you down in that regard.
Yeah. I remember reading it for the first time, because I remember this is at the point where JoJo the anime had not started at all. So I was reading Part 3, and even though I had fallen for it twice because I read Part 1 and Part 2, I really did not expect Iggy to be one of the ones to go down. Especially
the way he went down.
Yeah, they figure out how to make the comic dog have a dramatic exit.
Yeah, the comic relief dog that farts in people's faces has an extremely dramatic death.
Yeah, and very, I think, fitting is a weird way, but just the idea of just like, maybe a lot of it has to depend on what you see dogs as, but I thought it was fitting for his end. And
yeah, it was good, because a big part of it was that he had started trusting them because he didn't like them at first. And then he ends up sacrificing himself for Polnareff, which was a sweet moment.
Yeah, but everyone gets that moment, and it's really well done.
Kakyoin has an extremely sad death.
Yeah,
I don't know how it's done in the manga, because I have not read the manga for Part 3. But in the anime, it's rough.
I want to say I think it's still pretty rough, but it's I have to see the anime to like 100% remember it. I do remember it being kind of like a moment of like, God damn it, you could have made it to the end.
Yeah, like you were the one that was gonna live. So he confronts Dio on his own because he wants to discover the truth of Dio's stand, and he puts his tentacles everywhere because Hierophant Green has like the tentacles. And it looks like it's going to work, but then Dio stops time and puts a hole through his stomach, and he flies into a water tower. So if you've seen any of the Kakyoin as a donut jokes, that's where it comes from. But in the anime version, you have an extremely long monologue with Kakyoin where he's talking about, like, I wonder if my family misses me. I wonder if they read the letter I tried to send them last time, and he says they were probably too busy to read it anyway. And then as he's talking and he's trying to figure out Dio's stand, as he's bleeding to death, the color is draining out of the scene. So it's in full color when he hits the water tower, and then the more and more he's talking and the closer and closer he gets to dying, the more and more it fades to kind of black and white.
Yeah, that's different from the manga. You don't get that effect, at least.
Well, yeah, obviously you don't get the editing effect, but I don't know if he talks about his family or whatnot in the manga version. But
I can't really remember.
In the anime, it's extremely sad that he's and like in part 2, when Caesar dies, they almost hadn't really gotten anywhere yet. I guess I don't know if that's a fair thing to say, but it felt like the battle hadn't really begun, and that they were ready to fight after Caesar died. Like that was part of what galvanized Joseph to fight. Whereas when Kakyoin died, he was like the cop who was 4 days away from retirement. You know, he was right there, man.
He was so close to making it.
He was so close, and I really like Kakyoin, so him dying was rough for me.
Yeah, definitely. I remember at that point it was like, because at that point I want to say Abdal was gone, Iggy was gone, and
they had already died.
You were thinking surely no one else is gonna go, right? And then
yeah, they both died to Vanilla Ice. Abdul dies almost immediately. He doesn't even really get a send-off. He just fucking explodes.
Yep.
Iggy gets a very dramatic death. And then Polnareff avenges them by killing Vanilla Ice. And it's, they have this moment where you see their spirits in the sky, like, giving him the fist of friendship or whatever the fuck it is that Abdul's doing.
It's something that I really like that they do in animes in general, because there's also one for the mostly all dog related all dog fights anime, where after a character has sacrificed themselves, the characters look on, and in the sky is that character's face up in the air. Majin Vegeta gets the similar kind of treatment.
Yeah, he does.
But it's the very much like, look at my face one last time up in the sky.
Yeah, but in this case, it's actually their souls.
Yeah.
Because they interact with Polnareff. It's not just like a audience remember me. They do get that later.
Yeah.
They do get sky faces at the very end when they put Dio's body out in the sun to disintegrate. They look up at the sky and it shows their faces. But in this instance, it's actually their dead souls.
They're doing the Mufasa.
Yes, they're doing the cloud souls. Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
But yeah, Kakyoin, as soon as he confronted Dio, I was like, no. Don't let him do this. Someone stop him.
Damn it, Jotaro.
I know, and the Jotaro, the best part is they told him to stay behind and stop Polnareff from being a jackass. So I blame Polnareff, really.
Yeah, I bet he blames himself too.
Probably.
If he didn't have enough problems on his plate. But yeah, part 3, I like it a lot.
I highly recommend part 3. I see a lot of people make fun of it on Twitter, but fuck y'all, it's really good. Part 3 is great. Part 3 is like Final Fantasy 15 from 20 years ago, where you start out and you have these guys and you're like, I could like this, and then you end up really loving them by the time it's over.
Yeah, I think that's fitting. It's a fitting comparison. So now, I think it's time to go on to part 4. JoJo part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable.
Yes, so part 4 is Diamond is Unbreakable, and apparently it actually starts out with Jotaro in a very similar vein to part 3 starting out with Joseph. He's not 50 in this. It's only, I forget the time difference. Was it like 8 years?
I believe so. Let's
8
see,
or 10 years.
1999 at the start of part 4.
So it's been about 10 years, roughly a decade.
Yeah, because he was a boy when the Dio stuff was happening.
Yes, he was a young boy.
Yeah.
So Joseph, apparently before the events of Stardust Crusaders, cheated on Suzy Q with a Japanese teenager. Extremely weird, because he was still like 55.
Yeah.
He was still really old at the time. Even older than that, he'd have to be in his 60s.
He was real old by the point.
He was really old, and she was a college freshman, so she was like 19 or 20.
Yeah, around that age.
So yeah, it's already weird. But they have an illegitimate child together named Josuke, last name I will not attempt to pronounce.
Higashaki Akira?
I think it's Higashikata.
Sure. It's very Japanese, so
it's extremely Japanese, yeah. And he lives in a town called Moiro Town or Morio Town. Is it Moiro or Morio? I think it might be Morio.
Mario.
Yeah. Which is just this crazy fucking Dr. Seussian-esque town almost.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy how weird this town is.
Yeah, and it's fitting because the very first intro song is called Crazy Noisy Bizarre Town. But part 4 is not like the other ones at all. I don't know how else to say it.
Well, a lot of the way I see it is that a lot of the JoJo parts take different influences from different things. Like the first one is basically just a horror.
It's like vampire horror almost, straight up.
Vampire horror. Second one is more
/ Fist of the North Star.
Yeah. Second, I can't really remember at this point. But third is kind of more like the adventure, kind of gung-ho Indiana Jones style adventure. And this one is murder mystery.
Yeah, but not all the time. We'll get to the murder mystery.
Yeah.
The murder mystery takes over like 2/3 of the way into the story. But for the most part, part 4 is extremely lighthearted. I know it sounds weird to say murder mystery is very lighthearted in comparison to the others, but it is.
It's similar to when you say Persona 4 is the happiest game about murder.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Part 4 is very laid back. It's borderline kind of silly a lot of the times. Like, not just... Yeah, there's a lot of slice of life stuff. So Jotaro is there in Japan to divide up Joseph's estate because he's old as shit. He finds out that he has an illegitimate child, so he goes to tell the kid, hey, we're going to give you some of his money. And that's when you find out that Josuke has a stand because he punches this guy in his face and he breaks his nose because apparently JoJo's are only allowed to have stands that punch like crazy. But Crazy Diamond also has the ability to fix shit that it breaks. Or just in general. I think it can just fix things even without having to break it.
He can fix anything except for himself. I think that's like the only thing
Yes, he cannot fix himself, and he cannot heal you if you're already dead.
Yes.
Even though they totally do that in the last one. There's a sad moment where Josuke's grandfather dies. He's killed by the bad guy at the time, who's getting revenge on him because the bad guy was an escaped convict who his grandfather put in prison. But the convict has a stand now, and he uses the stand to kill his grandfather. And Josuke heals his grandfather, and he's crying over the body because he doesn't understand why his grandfather won't wake up, even though he healed him. And Jotaro says, Josuke, he's dead. You might be able to fix his body, but you can't bring back his soul. Even though Jotaro literally did that exact thing to his actual grandfather at the end of Stardust Crusaders.
Maybe he just didn't want to do it for his.
Yeah, maybe he just didn't know Josuke well enough at the time to save his grandfather's life. But, so that's when Josuke kind of decides he's going to get revenge on the guy. And so Josuke is the only JoJo that doesn't kill anybody. But he's occasionally leaves them in, like, Lovecraftian nightmare states that are far worse than death.
It's similar to what Kuwabara does to that one Toro brother. Not Kuwabara. Yeah, my bad. They both have K names, so I get them.
Yeah. So Josuke fights the guy who killed his grandpa, and he beats the shit out of him and also the rock that he's behind. So he, like, breaks them into pieces, and then he fixes them together. So the guy's, like, fused into the rock. And he just fucking leaves him there. And it becomes a landmark called the Angelo Stone. And that, like, almost sets the tone completely for part 4, because it's all crazy shit like this. Like, it's all, this is a landmark around Morio Town where couples come, and it's this fucking murderer fused into a stone. And it's all like that. Like, Koichi meets Jotaro early on. That's when they meet Josuke. That's when you find out that Jotaro can now stop time via what he calls Star Platinum of the World, which is like his special move where he stops time. Mm-hmm. He says he's not that good at it anymore, but it's total bullshit. And then the first villain is the guy with the stand arrow. So you find out that you get stands through a bow and arrow for some fucking reason. That's how you get stands, is you get shot with a bow and arrow and you get them. So they find out there's one in the town, and that's why Jotaro is actually there. It's to get the arrow. Koichi gets shot, and Josuke heals him. So Koichi was going to die from the arrow shot, because if you get shot with this bow, if you're strong, you make a stand. If you're weak, you die like Jotaro's mom was gonna. Koichi was gonna die, but Josuke healed him, so he gets a stand. He just can't really use it that well at first. I guess because he wasn't supposed to have it. I don't know.
He kind of has to level it up, kind of.
Yeah, it has 3 different forms, and it kind of grows into its final state. But they just kind of go on these wacky adventures for a little bit, like in the town. Like they go there and they fight this guy Okuyasu, who becomes a party member, because in JoJo tradition, you meet most of the party members almost immediately.
And you have to fight them, and then they
join you have to beat them, and then it's violence equals friendship, and that happens in almost every battle in Part 4, because, again, Part 4 is extremely lighthearted in comparison. So pretty much no one dies, and you're either turned into some kind of nightmare object to live an eternity of horrifying suffering, or Josuke likes you enough to be your friend. That's pretty much the only trade-off in Part 4, is either you're this horrifying nightmare death, or you're pretty cool, and so you hang out. And the stands are a lot more creative in Part 4. I don't really want to go too much into the plot of each part because
it's hard.
The plot it's hard to talk about Part 4 plot-wise because it almost doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, and especially
until you get to Yoshikage Kira, that's when the plot kind of kicks in.
Yeah, and then by the time you enter that part, it becomes extremely difficult to describe.
Yeah, so like the very beginning is Jotaro's looking for the arrow. They find the arrow because the guy fucking shoots Koichi in the fucking neck with it. It's like an extremely brutal scene. Because his neck is like stuck in a gate, and then the guy shoots him in the neck with the bow. But he gets his stand. Then Okuyasu's brother gets killed by the stand Red Hot Chili Pepper, which is a great stand name.
It is.
And then Okuyasu wants to get some revenge on him, so that guy is kind of like the B villain for a little bit. But then he's kind of it's really weird because he's almost borderline irrelevant. Like, this guy doesn't want to fight Jotaro because he knows Jotaro is really strong. By the way, that's a recurring theme in Part 4, is the villains are scared shitless of Jotaro.
Yeah, and they should be, really.
They should be. They're completely right to be. It's just funny that literally the villains are like, I really don't want to fight him.
Yeah, he's like some kind of monster at that point, not even a man.
He's like the boogeyman for bad guys.
Yeah, exactly. He sends them all running.
And so
it's like he's just known. Like, his legend has gone past. Like, no, that's the dude who literally just kicks the shit out of everyone.
Yeah, he's extremely famous somehow. I don't really know how.
I like to think that the villains have like some kind of villain network, and they're like literally they're Dio, who could stop time. He lost to a guy who saw him stop time and did it himself.
And decided to do it. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
That is terrifying.
Yeah. So they decide, we can't find the guy who has the stand arrow, but he's, causing some shit around the town. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring Joseph, and he's going to use Hermit Purple to find the guy. But the guy says, I'm going to kill Joseph, and then Joseph can't use Hermit Purple on me. But then that actually just reveals him to them anyway. So completely stupid of him to do that. But they fight, and he kind of kicks Josuke's ass, but Josuke reveals that he's very much like his father. He's kind of a combination of Jotaro and Joseph, where he's got Joseph's like happy-go-lucky personality and trickster combat style, but also he can beat the shit out of you with many punches like Jotaro does if the situation calls for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they beat him, and then Koichi and a guy named Rohan, who is another party member, who is awesome. Everybody likes Rohan, even though he's a giant piece of shit.
Yeah, I think Rohan is the weirdest thing ever. He's definitely one of those characters that I like a lot of his abilities, and then I like the way his stupid little stand looks like, but then I can't really tell you. Maybe he's my Jotaro, where I kind of look at him and go like, he's kind of an asshole and it's making it very hard, but then he has a lot of cool stuff.
So I like Rohan generally. He's very eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate him, but I would say he's one of my favorites. But he's fun enough. He
gets a lot of fun battles. I'll say that.
Yeah,
much. That's what I remember a lot about Part 4. Is a lot of it is Josuke just kind of hanging out with his friends, and then the other half is Rohan gets into a stupid battle.
Yeah, Rohan gets himself involved in some bullshit that he has to get saved from.
Yeah. And especially because I read the manga of it, it takes a lot of chapters for Rohan to get his shit together. And
Rohan's a huge piece of shit for most of it, but he's a team member for some reason.
Yeah.
So then, so they meet a ghost named Raimi, and she is like, "Hey, there's a murderer in town, and he murdered me." And they're like, "I don't fucking care. I'm Rohan. I don't give a shit. Fuck you." And Koichi's like, "God, you're the worst. We do care. We're gonna find the murderer." And they decide they're gonna go find this guy. And so Jotaro is like trying to find him and looking into where he is and shit. And then they have a battle where it's actually Jotaro and Koichi who fight him first. And Jotaro, in true fashion for this story, gets taken out almost immediately because he's borderline like, what's a good comparison? He's like the teacher from My Hero Academia that can steal your powers with his eyes.
Yeah, like a Razorhead.
Yeah, so you know how a Razorhead's never allowed to fight anyone that matters because if he did, it would be over immediately, so he's constantly taken out by some bullshit reason?
Yes.
That is 100% what happens to Jotaro in this. I think they actually make fun of it at one point, because I know they do, especially in the anime. They talk about it all the time, of where Jotaro is like just completely fucking unaware of like all the awful shit happening, because it's the only way to not have him involved and solve everything immediately. Like at one point when Josuke is fighting Okuyasu, he's in the street having a stand battle, and you see a car come up and turn the other way, and Jotaro's in the car. So it's just happening out the rearview mirror of the car, but Jotaro's reading a book, so he doesn't fucking see it. And then later, there's a house that fucking explodes, and Koichi's like, "That sounded like Josuke screaming," and Jotaro goes, "I think it's just the rain."
Yeah, they just have to put away, and otherwise he would literally solve every problem super easy.
And you see it happen because he gets blown up by this remote control bomb that Kira has. And Koichi manages to save him, and he makes it like heavy, because that's one of his stand powers, is he makes shit really heavy. Mm-hmm. And so, because whatever happens to your stand happens to you, Kira's hand gets really heavy, because that bomb is his stand's hand. So he's like dragging his heavy ass hand all the way to find Koichi, and Jotaro's like fucking bleeding out on the ground, but he still actually like solos Kira in like 10 seconds. Because Kira's like, "Oh, you're gonna fight me? Look at you, you're all fucking dead, bro. I'll kill you." And then Jotaro fucking just destroys him in like no time at all. And then Josuke shows up, so he runs away, and this is sort of where the murder mystery part really takes over, because they find him the first time almost through complete coincidence, because their fat little shithead friend takes his sandwich bag that actually has a dead girl's hand in it, because for some reason he carries a dead girl's hand around with him.
I think he says, if I remember right from the manga, it's kind of like this creepy, like, I just want to feel this, like, it's very much like a killer's way of thinking of, like, I want to constantly feel this person's touch.
Well, he's got, like, a crazy hand fetish. That's, like, his thing.
Definitely.
So, yeah, whenever he kills a girl, they become his, quote, girlfriend, and he keeps their hand. And then when he kills a new girl, he burns up the old hand. So his stand is Killer Queen, which blows shit up. It just makes shit bombs. That's pretty much what it does. Mm-hmm. And so that's how he gets away with it without any evidence, because he never leaves a body behind, because he disintegrates all the bodies. He kills their little friend Shigechi, who's kind of an asshole, so I didn't really feel that bad when he died.
It's kind of surprising in a lot of ways, but it's similar to, like, at least I think it feels like at least Josuke cared, because he was his friend.
Josuke's a nice guy. Yeah,
he's a nice guy, so he knew that his other friends are also dirtbags, but they do a lot of ways of, like, making, like, even dirtbags can have and be good friends. Of, like, technically they're all delinquents and punks, but they're still, like, having a good time and trying to just, like, live life, dealing with their own thing.
Yeah, basically.
And I think that's kind of what that fat guy kind of falls into it, because I feel like they're able to befriend him, and like they don't really like ever judge him for anything. They just want to be like, "No, you're our friend. That's cool. You have like a weird and you're kind of disgusting looking, but that doesn't change the fact that you're
kind
of
a creepy ogre kid."
Yeah, but that doesn't change anything. You're still our friend. So even when he does go away, you at least feel like he clearly fucked up because he fucked with the wrong guy's friend, basically. That's why he's able to be likable, I say, Josuke, is that he's able to make friends with, like, the weirdest looking people, and he accepts them kind of immediately.
Yeah, he does. And that's sort of a defining part of Josuke's character, is that he's pretty cool with everybody as long as you don't piss him off.
Or make fun of his hair.
Thank God that part gets gotten rid of. That's the dumbest shit ever. Apparently, when you make fun of his hair, he flies into a blind rage until he beats the shit out of you, so much so that he can no longer see.
Yeah, which I want to say doesn't... It kind of happens towards the end as well, doesn't he?
Against Kira?
Yeah, I want to say...
No.
Or doesn't he, like, mess with his hair in some way?
No. Not in the anime, anyway.
Okay. Because I could have swore there was somewhere near the end. It includes if you mess with the hair. Like, it goes into, like, an entire thing.
I don't think so. Maybe in the manga. I think the last time he has a hair freak out is against Rohan. And that's actually how he beats Rohan.
Yeah.
Is Rohan makes fun of his hair, because Rohan's powers are sight-based, where if you see his stand possesses you.
Yeah.
But he makes fun of Josuke's hair, and that makes Josuke so angry he is not able to actually see.
I think eventually people just learn to stop doing that. Like, don't...
Yeah, like, I assume all the villains are, like, vaguely aware of the other things that happen around them.
Yeah, and to be
fair... So
they
just choose not to do it.
Kira's smart enough that he's not gonna, like, be so cocky as to make fun of him and let him be strong enough to beat him.
Yeah, well, Kira's whole thing, which is kind of nice after Dio, because Dio was overpowered as shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way for them to even win was they had to pull Jotaro's time stop bullshit out of his ass to beat him.
Mm-hmm.
Kira kind of sucks at fighting.
Oh yeah, he's very bad at it.
He's kind of shitty at it. Like, Jotaro can barely move, and he still beats the shit out of him. And then later on, when he's fighting Josuke, as soon as the fight becomes melee-based, he immediately loses. Josuke just starts beating the shit out of him, even though Josuke's like half dead. So he's really bad at stand fighting, but he's clever, and his powers are used in really cool ways, because he gets this dead cat that puts its soul in a flower, and it has a stand that can make air bullets. So he turns the air bullets into bombs, and he makes like a tag team with the cat, where he shoots air bombs that blow up, and it's very cool. The stands in this part, in generally, are better than the ones in Part 3, I think.
Yeah, he's able to have, much like Haman is used better in Part 2, he's able to kind of, Araki got more of a basing of like what makes a good stand, what makes a bad stand, and was able to make something cool.
Now, there's still some bad stands.
Yeah, like Bug Guy.
Well, I meant in Part 4.
Yeah. I mean, there's also a Bug Guy in Part 4.
Who am I thinking of? Who is that?
His fat friend that dies.
Oh, with Harvest. Yeah, I guess they are little bees, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, his stand is actually super overpowered, actually.
It is, which is probably another reason why he was the one that had to die.
The one that had to die, yeah. There's actually only 2 deaths in this, and only one of them... So there's 2 deaths. Neither one of them, I think, really count as like a party member. They're just like general friendlies.
Mm-hmm.
Is Shigechi, and then a girl that you see like one other time.
It's kind of one of the dudes he randomly fights, right? No, it's the one...
one who can change the girl's face so that Koichi will like her again.
Yes, that one. Which is an entire other subplot that is hard to get. There's a lot of silly stuff that happens in Part 4.
Part 4 is extremely long, and it's extremely slice-of-life based.
Yeah.
So if you like that kind of thing, you're going to love it a lot. If you want a more action-heavy story like Stardust Crusaders, you're not going to get it here, really.
Yeah, no.
I love them both for their own reasons. I really like Diamond is Unbreakable. Because I'm the kind of guy who can watch a story and just watch it forever. Like, if he just wrote Josuke doing some fuck shit for like 20 years, I would still watch it. I still watch Pirates of the fucking Caribbean. We're on the 5th one.
It's true. Fair enough. Pirates of the Caribbean now on Netflix. Check it out.
Yeah, I would watch it, dude. Like, I just don't like... If it's a character and a setting that I like, I don't really care what they're doing. Like, I'm sad that Dragon Ball Super is coming to a close because I can watch Goku and friends do some shit forever. So,
I get you.
Yeah, and so Part 4 is generally... There's a lot of, like... Once Kira comes into the picture, it becomes a much more plot-focused story where they're trying to find and stop him from murdering, just general murdering. But to get there, there's a lot of slice-of-life stuff. Like, there's a girl who likes Koichi, and she's fucking insane. And she kidnaps him and does fucking insane shit. And her stand sucks because it's just her hair.
Mm-hmm.
And she probably has the stand I like the least in Part 4. But Part 4 also has some pretty awesome stands, like Crazy Diamond, really cool. The redesign to Star Platinum, because Star Platinum got some design changes, really cool. Echoes, really cool.
Yeah. Rohan's is also real cool. I don't know if you mentioned
Yeah,
that.
Heaven's Door. Heaven's Door is also extremely cool. And the stands in general are much more, like, tailored to their user.
Personality.
Yeah.
That too. I like Rohan specifically because he's like a famous manga artist. His is 100% related to that. So he like, if you ever play like a JoJo game and you see like a person's face being flipped like a book, that's because that was Rohan's stand doing that.
Yeah, Rohan's stand can literally turn pages on your face like a book and read about your life.
Yeah.
And he can write things in the book that become like commands to you. Like he can write, cannot attack Rohan, and then you can't attack him. And most of the stands in general are like that. Like Koichi is this small little guy, and I'm like 90% sure he's a reference to Gohan and Cell.
Does kind of feel that way, huh?
I don't know which one came first between the Cell Saga and Diamond is Unbreakable.
Shit.
But I had no
original
idea.
run is 1992.
For Diamond?
Yes, 1992 to 1995. So
Hang on, let me Google that. I'm pretty sure that's after Dragon Ball Z.
let's quickly look up.
Yes, it is. Because Dragon Ball Z started as an anime in 1989.
Okay, that makes sense then. By that point, they had to have reached Cell games, right?
Dragon Ball Z started as an anime. Dragon Ball Z as an anime started in 1989. So that's
Oh, so the
that's
manga
starting
had to
with
have already ended.
Raditz. Yeah. Well, then I don't know because there's so much filler because the manga was going at the same time. It's close, but I'm pretty sure Dragon Ball Z came first.
Yeah, either way. But that
Pretty
does
sure.
make sense because like his entire thing is like his little Echoes dude kind of does have like different forms.
Yeah, he starts out as like the first form of Echoes even has like Cell's tail, and he has like the little spots on his body, and he's green.
Mhm.
And then when Koichi, he's like this meek little kid, but then when he gets serious, he gets Super Saiyan hair and an aura.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like a reference to Super Saiyan 2 Gohan and Cell.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
It seems like a fair comparison.
Yeah, but like because he's like so small and he doesn't really fight, his powers usually aren't based purely on combat. Like his first stand when he puts words on like a person, all of a sudden that's all they can hear. Then he gets his second form of his stand, which when he puts words on a surface, it makes the surface take on the properties of that word. Like someone's gonna fall on a spiked rock, so he writes like bounce or boing or something on it, and it turns it like into a rubber cushion instead of a spiked rock, and it bounces them back up the cliff. And it's a lot of stuff like that. The third one is stupid, and it just makes shit heavy. I don't understand that one.
Yeah, it just like gets very heavy. It doesn't really make sense.
It just makes shit heavy.
The first
don't
two
really-
abilities, cool.
Very cool, yeah. The third one makes up for it, but the fact that the stand has a personality, and the personality is awesome.
Yeah.
The Echoes Act 3 is the one where all the memes come from part 4, where he's like, okay, master, let's kill the hoe. Like, it's all that kind of shit from part 4 is from Echoes Act 3. But his power is stupid, because all he does is make one thing heavy, and only one thing.
Yeah, it's kind of very situational.
Yeah. But ultimately, Kira switches his face when they catch him, because they finally kind of bump into him, almost. It feels like complete circumstance that they bump into him in the first time.
Yeah, it is.
But he changes his face so they don't know what he looks like anymore. He kills this guy, takes over his life, and his kid is like aware of it. So the kid tries to help them catch him, and then he gets stabbed by the arrow again, even though he already has a stand. So it gives him a new power that apparently fucking turns back time.
Bites the dust.
Yeah, it's called Bites the Dust.
Which is real good because his entire thing is based off of Queen.
Yeah, Killer Queen is the name of his stand.
And
then his first power is Sheer Heart Attack.
And now here's Bites the Dust.
Bites the Dust, yeah. And basically, whenever someone finds out his identity through the child, they die, and it resets into it like a time loop, so the kid can't ever tell anyone, and no one can ever question the kid, because even just asking the kid, do you know who Yoshikage Kira is, causes it to go off.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually extremely confusing. I don't understand really how it works, but
Yeah, it's one of those things where I definitely remember the manga spending a good couple pages kind of going like, so you know Bites the Dust. Here's a couple pages trying to tell you
the
exactly
refresher chapter. Yeah.
Let me tell you exactly how. Funny enough, the only time they've ever had to do 2 times explain a villain's power is in part 5.
Interesting. Is it King Crimson?
Yeah, they have to.
I figured.
They explained it in one chapter, and then the next chapter starts with, okay, here's how King Crimson works.
That's because King Crimson is the world, but if the world made absolutely no sense at all.
Yeah, there's another my favorite JoJo meme, which is, how does King Crimson work? And the answer is, it just does.
And that's pretty much the truth of that, actually. I've read part 5. It's
hard, yeah. Once you get to that part, you'll see whatever. I can't wait for everyone to experience King Crimson.
When the anime finally comes out.
Yes.
Wait for your anime adaptation from David Productions.
Exactly. Can't wait for this to come out in the next
part
day.
5.
Part 5 gets announced.
Yeah. It would be to spite us. That would be the one time it happens.
Yeah, Bandai calls him up and says, listen, we got some real jackasses that constantly
These
make
guys,
fun of us.
We need you to fuck with them. And David Productions is like, hey, that's fine.
Works for us.
But yeah, so the kid is actually pretty cool. He devises this plan to get Josuke close enough so that when Kira says his own name, he will out himself to Josuke. And it works. And so because Kira outed himself instead of it being the kid, it doesn't set off Bites the Dust, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's how it works.
Yeah, I don't know. It works, but it's cool. They have a really cool fight. Everyone kind of gets their moment in this fight. It's nice because, like, whereas in part 3, everyone, like, contributed, but they also got destroyed, and then Jotaro pulled all the weight afterward. This fight was everyone kind of played their part, and there was no clear, like, hero.
It's similar to the end of Destroy All Monsters, where all the monsters team up on King Ghidorah, and everyone just, like, takes a shot at him before he goes down.
It is kind of like that, yeah, because, like, Josuke fights him one-on-one at first, but he loses. Or I don't know if he loses, but he's about to lose. And then Okuyasu, who everyone thought was dead and actually isn't dead, saves the day by pulling the kill shot away from Josuke and wiping it away with his power, because his power, like, scrapes shit out of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so he's standing there about to fight them now that Okuyasu's there to back up Josuke, but then Koichi, Rohan, and Jotaro hear the commotion of the battle, so he's surrounded. Then he bites the dust on some girl, so that it will go off. But before he's able to push the switch to set off Bites the Dust and restart the time loop, Koichi makes his hand heavy, and then it's too heavy for him to push the button, and then Jotaro stops time and beats the shit out of him in true Jotaro fashion. And then he punches him under the tire of an ambulance, and then that's how he dies, is he gets run over by the fucking ambulance.
As if it wasn't enough overkill on this. On this. I was going to say poor man, but no, this fucking asshole.
It's well deserved.
He deserves it at this point. There's a lot of, like, Kira just always basically gets away. So this would be like if the gang of Scooby-Doo just beat the shit out of, like, the Funky Phantom or something, and then he just gets run over so that there's no guilty conscience on Jotaro, because he technically did kill him.
Yeah, although Jotaro totally killed people before, so I don't really know why they didn't just have him kill him.
Yeah,
I guess it's because they didn't want Jotaro to be the hero. I don't know.
It's hard.
Anyway,
the real hero is our people in the ambulance.
Yeah, the inattentive ambulance driver who did not stop when someone said, "Hey, stop."
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, but that is sort of the plot, plus some feelings of Part 4 shared already. In general, I really like it. It's not my favorite part, but it's weird because I think of every JoJo part when I'm talking about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this one's great. This is my favorite one. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I've said that for every single part, except for Phantom Blood.
Except for... I'm the only one that champions Phantom Blood.
I respect Phantom Blood.
Yeah. It's understandable.
I will leave it at that.
I'll accept it. Part 4 is maybe the closest... The more if I think about Part 4, Part 2 is the one that has kind of my like heart, and this one kind of has my soul, because if it wasn't for part 4, so many other things wouldn't really be here. Like there would be no Persona 4, and my life with no Persona 4 would be completely different from everything else.
Yeah, Persona 4 straight up is Diamond is Unbreakable.
Yeah, it is basically this. It is crazy how much, like, the only thing that's different is like their plots are different, but in terms of the overall feel and the style,
even the setting is the same.
Yeah, the setting, the idea of like this town, like you have a bunch of like weird little town things that go on. You make friends with these weird looking people, which the weird looking people in this case would be that one girl who kind of looks like an apple head in part 4, and not part 4, in Persona 4. And
yeah, it's just like a weird little town that like no one ever goes to, and just all this crazy shit happens, and all the inhabitants are just like, yeah, shit happens.
Yeah, and then like this group of people get real fun. Like, we didn't even mention that there's a fucking alien in this part, and it's never really brought up or addressed.
Maybe he is. Like they kind of leave it ambiguous, but he's just a bro. He's just part of the fam. You know, he just hangs out.
You always think that maybe he'll be something, maybe he'll die. Never happens, really. Just kind of is allowed to exist.
Yeah, and they don't really explain if he's a stand user or not, because they kind of they say like, oh, there's no way he's actually an alien, but then Josuke like brings out Crazy Diamond and tries to punch him, but he doesn't flinch from the punch or try to get out of the way, so it implies that he couldn't see it, and if you can't see a stand, that means you don't have one. But then it could just be like, well, maybe he was just extremely stone-faced and very calm. It's confusing.
Yeah. It has characters like him. It has Invisible Baby, which is another great character.
Invisible Baby is my favorite, dude.
Who almost gets Joseph in trouble because fucking
because she thinks she cheated on him again. Yeah.
Even though he's like wheelchair bound and probably
yeah,
dead.
He's like 82.
Joseph, also Old Man Joseph, I like this version of him better just because he feels like so, like, you feel like there's a moment where it looks like Josuke wants to like yell and berate him, but then he looks at his father and he's like, this man barely knows where he is right now. Like, there's no point in it.
Yeah, and he has the moment where Josuke warms up to him is very sweet, where they're trying to find the invisible baby because it fell in the river, but it's fucking invisible baby. They can't see it. So Josuke is like digging through the water trying to find him, and Joseph cuts his hand so that its blood will go in the water, and then you'll be able to see the baby because the blood will flow around the baby.
Yeah, real good.
But of course he's 80-something years old, so heavy bleeding could very well have killed him. So Josuke kind of has this moment where he starts respecting his father more.
Yeah, it really helps you understand, like, yeah, Joseph also did this very bad thing where he had an illegitimate son, but you know, he's human. He makes mistakes, and
yeah, he's still a good guy, and it's a very good callback to like younger Joseph, where you're like, that's, you know, he's still a hero in there.
There's a hero in there. He just also kind of screws up along the way, but
yeah,
I think that helps make him just be.
You can be a hero and a jackass, I think.
Exactly, and that's
yeah.
This kind of helps, and especially helps looking at him, like thinking about Joseph, even though he's really old. And, like, again, I really like him in this. Again, Invisible Baby, great character. And she also gets, like, the Joestar family name, I think.
Yeah, she's adopted. Joseph adopts her because she has no family, so they name her Shizuka Joestar. Mm-hmm. And there's at one point where Rohan is playing against this kid. This kid's stand is a rock, paper, scissors stand. And if he beats you, like, 3 in a row, he steals all your powers. And so, like, he's about to beat Rohan, and then his hand won't make the sign that he wants. Like, he tries to make rock, and I think his fingers pull themselves into scissors. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't know what happened, and it's the fucking invisible baby. Rohan sneaks the invisible baby onto the enemy so she can move his fingers.
It's real good.
It's like, great. And then when he picks the invisible baby up afterward, and it was like, it was the invisible baby, she makes a pose.
There's there's a lot of like fun characters, and it's a lot of like stuff like it's fun to mess around with. It's not as like the stakes aren't as crazy high as like the end of the world type of stuff. The deal will take over like in part 3. Part 4, they're really mainly just eventually looking for Kira and just like in general looking for bad people, which I think just helps ground stories a bit more when it's less about the fate of the world and it's more about the fate of these characters.
Yeah, just the characters. Because like, I think one of my favorite parts of Morio Town is that like, I was not kidding when I called it borderline Seussical. like the sky is green and like pink and shit like all the time.
Yeah.
And it's colorful and crazy, but like none of the characters draw attention to that in the setting. No one is there. You never have that one guy that's always in some fantastical story. Like, it reminds me almost of the time we talked about The Mummy, where there's like all this crazy shit, but then all the characters are always like, "Wow, that was great." It's like, fuck you.
Yeah, just
Shut
kind
up
of
and proceed with the story. Whereas there's no character in this that like I guess cheapens it by like making fun of the weirdness like that. That's just life.
yeah,
That's life to them, and they just live it, and it's great.
and it really does feel like a small town, kind of like, no, this is just the way life is here.
Yeah, it's just a weird town.
Also, the fact that Josuke is saved by a man with a similar haircut, and that is what inspires him to get that same style of hair into.
And they never reference it, like any explanation for that.
No, they only do it. I know it's in the manga, but it's really just a one-time thing, and he never like brings up that guy again. But it just tells you like, no, this is why this hair's like.
Well, no,
this.
in the anime they explain why he has the hairstyle, but they never say like who that guy is or even talk about it again after that.
No, he's just. I think that kind of just helps sell the fact that he was just some unnamed hero.
Yeah, he was just some guy who did a good thing.
Exactly, and I think that's what Josuke's trying to be. He's just the guy who wants to do the good thing. And also, I think this the part where you learn that Jotaro's a marine biologist?
Well, he becomes one after while he's here.
Okay.
He writes his college thesis while he's here.
That is maybe the most character development Jotaro's ever had, is learning that he's a marine biologist, and
Yeah,
then
that he really likes sea life.
And then you just kind of go like, "Wait, really?"
Yeah, you go, huh, and that's that. Because
Yeah.
you assume he's going to be like some kind of borderline, like paranormal investigator or something. Nope, he is a starfish. So he wrote a paper about a starfish that he saw on the beach.
And it really does help make his character seem like a little bit more like opens up a peek into his mind of like, I would like to know a little bit more about you, Jotaro. Why do you love the starfish so much? Tell
Yeah,
me.
he just loves sea life, and that's a cool thing to be. That's relatable.
Yeah, you know what? Good on you. And I also
And,
like that one of Kira's biggest threats is this little kid who's like, I can't believe you killed my dad. And then the mom is like really into it in a really weird way.
So the mom hated the dad. They were like your vintage broken marriage. But Kira is like, despite being a crazy serial killer, he's like eloquent and vaguely talented. Like he's a good cook and all this stuff. So when he takes over the body of the other guy, he's just acting like himself because he didn't know the other guy other than what he looked like. So the new Kira, who like, cooks for her and is like goes to work on time and is, an actual vaguely kind of like a dad to the son. Him just trying to pretend that he's a good father because he assumed the other guy is, ends up winning over the mother.
Yeah, and the mother also, they let you, at least in the manga, they let you know that she knows that there's something wrong, that this guy is not the husband she knew, but she's just kind of going like, I want to see where this goes.
Yeah. She kind of allures the fact that he's acting weird, and like he's definitely not acting like himself. I think in the anime they just kind of say that she chalks it up to that he's changed as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they ever like say that she thinks that he's different. I think that kind of paints the mother in a bit of a creepier light if they do that.
I think in the manga they totally do, or at least the translation of the manga I read said something like, she eventually kind of figures out that this is not the same person, but she's kind of into it. She's like, well, this is a better upgrade.
Fair enough.
I'll just see where this goes.
Yeah.
And to be fair, she doesn't really know what he's done other than her husband's
Yeah.
gone.
Well. Yeah.
But yeah, who
Yeah,
knows?
but the kid contributes to taking him down, and he gives a really cool speech where he says that because Kira's whole thing is that he's lucky, and they like kind of embrace it in the plot that he like is so close to losing all the time, and he just keeps getting fucking lucky. Like when Josuke's about to finally put him down, and the cat freaks out and makes air cushions that block his fists.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments like that, and then finally he starts getting unlucky, and the kid gives him that speech where it's like, "There's no you." They're like, "I couldn't bear to live in a universe that would side with you over justice and all this other stuff." And then they finally beat him, and it's a good moment all around. It also has some flaws, like Stardust Crusaders. Nothing's perfect in life. The character of Yoshikage Kira's dad, who is a ghost in a picture.
Yeah, that guy.
contributed almost nothing other than extending the runtime of the series by like 20 episodes.
Yeah, this is kind of where they start. I want to say it kind of started in part 3, and then in part 4 it becomes a little bit more like, okay, come on, seriously? And then by the time it reaches part 5, you're actively angry at some points where they continuously add these villains who just feel like stopgaps. Who are just like,
yes,
I know that the plot is really moving forward, but hello, I'm a new character and I'm here to mess with your day. And
then you're going to have to fight me, and then nothing is going to change because you're going to be right back where you were before trying to get to this end goal.
Exactly, and nothing will have been different. It will, once I'm done with it, it will be like I never existed.
And so I almost wish that he wasn't even a thing, and it was just others, because like in the very beginning, they just bump into these other stand users that fucking cause trouble. Like the guy who can make a clone of anybody with his mannequin stand thing. He's just some kind of dick who just is doing shitty things with his stand.
Yeah.
But then later on, it turns into Kira's ghost dad is flying around with the stand arrow, stabbing people to make stand users to fight Josuke's group with. And it's like, I don't give a shit about this, because the end goal of them looking for Kira is not in any way impacted by these other characters coming in.
Kira barely cares about his father.
Like, he kind of uses the dad as like it's just a tool to get away.
Yeah, like a shield.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty big part. And also, I'll say just in general, sometimes, even when they're good, a lot of the fights are sometimes just you going like, okay, I guess they just wanted to have Rohan fight this person for some reason. And I like this, but at the same time, it doesn't really contribute much.
Yeah, like the stand that gets on Rohan's back, and he has to take him to the ghost hallway so that he'll get dragged into hell.
Yeah. Also,
really,
there's a ghost hallway.
Yeah, there's a ghost hallway. That's where they meet Raimi and learn about Kira. And if you turn around and look behind you, hell like sucks you up, but only sometimes, because people totally turn around in that all the time on screen and nothing happens. So it's mostly just when they need it to happen.
Yeah. Hell is a fickle place.
Yeah, hell doesn't care that much unless you're shitty, I guess. I don't know. But, like, there's just so many of those. Like I've talked about the rock, paper, scissors guy and the invisible baby beating him. But what the fuck did we have to have a whole episode with a kid who wants to play rock, paper, scissors with Rohan?
It's crazy. And you know what's even crazy? Do you know how many chapters that was in the manga?
How many?
6.
Jesus Christ.
371 to 376. So around, it's still way too much. And this is
it's way too long for when you're talking about going after a murderer, and they're like, but what about this silly rock, paper, scissors child who never shows back up again?
Yeah, and the chapter before that is Kira's new life, and then the second one is Kira's new life part 2, and then right after that is the dealing with the alien. And it's like,
so cool chapters where fun stuff happens.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
And like, but see, that episode's part of the reason I like Rohan is that Rohan is so eccentric that when he tones down the villainy, like after they beat him and he becomes a good guy, he becomes borderline Dio funny. Like, when the kid is like, he keeps following Rohan around, and he says that he wants to play rock, paper, scissors, and Rohan keeps saying no. So finally he gets so fed up, he says okay, and then when they go to play, he punches the kid in the fucking face and says that he picked rock. And it's just all that kind of shit. Or like, Josuke decides he wants spending money, so he convinces the shape-shifting alien to turn into dice so they can cheat Rohan out of some of his money. And Rohan, might be my favorite episode of Diamond is Unbreakable, is nothing plot relevant happens. It's just Rohan and Josuke hijinks. And Rohan figures out that Josuke is cheating because the alien sucks at cheating. And so all of Rohan's rolls are like the worst possible rolls, and all of Josuke's are the best. And so Rohan, they laugh about how Josuke couldn't be cheating, and they have like that awkward cartoon laugh where Josuke's like fake laughing and Rohan's real laughing, and then Rohan fucking stabs himself in the hand, and then Rohan's house catches on fire, and one of the other guys is like, Rohan, dude, your house is burning down. And Rohan straight up says he doesn't give a shit as long as he can figure out how Josuke is cheating.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff like that.
There's like... Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I'm just saying there's a good... Like, I wish there was more... Instead of them putting stuff like really random fights or at least like if they made the fights more about like stuff like that, where it's like real silly and it's about characters like interacting with each other, which is actually something that you don't see in JoJo a lot, just because usually they're so busy trying to kill whoever's the main person, you don't get time to like have like a high school experience and just hang out with friends and do silly stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's a benefit of Part 4 taking place all in the same place. Because you don't have to have, like in Stardust Crusaders, you don't have to have the Pakistan stand user and the Ocean stand user and the Indian stand user and the battle in fucking wherever the hell. Because, they're just fighting them. It's literally just them getting from point A to point B and getting attacked and fought along the way. Whereas there's still a lot of like extraneous stand users, but because it's sort of like, it's almost very Persona-like where it's not their primary focus. Like, it's the focus of the plot, but these characters still go to school and go home and go to sleep and shit, Whereas in Stardust Crusaders, 100% of everything they do is chasing after Dio.
Yeah, and that
But these characters, because they're settled in one area, they can spend a lot more time just interacting with each other. And I agree, I would have preferred a lot more of that in comparison to random stand, like the stand user in the tower. And he can't leave his tower, but if someone else comes in the tower, he can leave the tower.
Yeah, that's a real weird one.
They spent a whole episode fighting that guy.
Yep.
And like, it was cool to develop the alien guy a little bit, because he helped with the fight. But I would have just preferred them fucking doing some silly shit together.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of like, I just wish that the points that they were strong in, I just wish they focused more on that. I think that's really where the negatives come into. The stuff that it's best at is stuff that usually you wish they just did more.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I was sad to see Diamond is Unbreakable end, because I didn't feel like I was finished with any of the characters.
Yeah, definitely. And that's
whereas like when Stardust Crusaders ended, I was like, all right, Polnareff, bye.
Good. You're done.
Yeah.
And I would still, there was, we don't have to get into it, but it really does feel like we're not going to be seeing the Diamond is Unbreakable crew in much of anything.
I think that's pretty much confirmed.
Yeah.
That's never coming back.
Yeah.
Supposedly, Araki said that Diamond is Unbreakable is his favorite. I don't know if that's true, because translated interviews about a manga are about as reliable as horoscopes. It's just all made up bullshit.
Yeah, like how Dragon Ball was supposed to end after Raditz, right?
Yeah, well, end after Raditz, and then end after Frieza, and then Gohan was actually supposed to be the main character, but the fans were so furious that Toriyama rewrote it and all that shit that's totally not true at all.
Yeah. I would have actually liked it if Dragon Ball ended right when Piccolo killed
Killed Goku
and Raditz.
Killed Goku and Raditz and kidnapped Gohan, and that's the end of the series.
Looks up to this guy, I did it for you, father, and then it just ends credits.
King Piccolo won in the end.
Exactly. Like a Conan the Barbarian style ending where he's just on a throne.
Oh, that would be pretty funny.
It would be. But yeah, Diamond is Unbreakable. It's great. Yeah. You should see it.
I feel bad because I feel like Phantom Blood is the only JoJo part as a standalone, I wouldn't recommend, but I feel like it gets a lot better once you watch the later parts and start getting invested in the world. You can appreciate it more. The rest of them are so great.
Oops. Yeah, I think that's just the way, when it's really weird because I like part 1, I like Phantom Blood a lot, but I also understand that Phantom Blood is the number one thing that will turn a person off from JoJo. That's just the way it is.
It's just like, I mean, I don't want to say it's bad because I don't think it's bad, but it's a struggle to get through.
Yeah, it's kind of like trying to watch the first movie of a series when you know it's not super good, but you need to see it because the next part is good.
You need the information.
It's kind of like playing the first Assassin's Creed and then playing Assassin's Creed 2, where 2 built on everything that was good about Assassin's Creed 1. And Assassin's Creed 1, when you go back, is this weird, like, time relic. But I'm going to say right now, Phantom Blood is better than Assassin's Creed 1. But
probably
it's similar to that kind of feeling, I'll say.
Yeah, because, like, Part 4 is... I love Part 4. I love Part 3. I love Part 2. I lukewarmly nod at Part 1.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, there's a reason why it has the shortest amount of stuff.
Yeah. But obviously, I would highly recommend Diamond is Unbreakable. It's awesome. It's really great the whole way through.
And you'll understand why the podcast formerly known as Modcast has that cover when you see it.
Yes. Because it also it has some of the best intro music in the series.
Yeah, definitely has a lot of fun playing around with it too as well. Like it's stuff that is so cool. I just want people to kind of see it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're really well animated. One of the big problems with JoJo openings is that they kind of spoil the show.
Oh, that's true.
But I mean, it's made for people who already know what happens, really.
Yeah.
So.
And luckily enough, I think Part 4 doesn't spoil anything in the opening, unless you see the opening Part 2, which that's because it's like later on.
I guess so. Part 4 actually, you're right. They don't, because they actually reanimate the openings as it goes on.
Yeah, and then the only thing that would be different is like you get to know a little bit about it bites the dust before it happens, but that's only if you're just that's only because it's so weird what's going on. You won't understand it until the episode starts, and then you look at the opening and you go, oh, okay, that's why it's like that. Yeah,
because like I know in the earlier Part 1 episodes, they still show stuff like Okuyasu and his stand and everything before you meet them, but stuff like Koichi's echoes is actually edited into the opening after he gets it. So all of the openings kind of grow with what's happening in the story. It's actually really cool.
Yeah, I like it when openings change that way. I wish more did it.
Yeah, I agree. It's very cool. Other than that, I think that's about all I want to talk about.
I think that's about it. Neither one of us ever saw that live action version, right?
No, I tried to find it. I couldn't find it.
It's hard to find. It turns out very hard to find live action Japanese movies based off of an anime.
Yeah, I mean, it does exist.
Even when it's done by Takeshi Miike.
Yeah, it exists. It's real, and it seems like it's actually pretty good. All the people who have seen it have said it's extremely faithful.
I mean, to be fair to that director, he is pretty faithful with his adaptations of stuff. But he's also one of those directors that when you watch his movies, you don't actually know if you're going to like it or not. So he's one of those fun ones where you're like, am I going to like one of your movies today? And then you go, no or yes. And that's basically it.
But yeah, I've heard very good things about it from JoJo fans, so I hope to one day find it.
Hopefully one day. All right, so I think what we should cover is what's coming up next. A preview of coming attractions for the next concession stand.
I know as much about this one as you guys do, so.
All right, this will be fun. So as promised a long time ago, I will actually get my brother and sister on, and we will talk about a movie. The movie I have decided to watch, and I think it's very relevant because, as you know, Dragon Ball is getting a new movie. So I figure what better way of celebrating a new movie than by watching Dragon Ball Evolution, the
fantastic,
terrible live-action version. Speaking of animes, I got live-action versions. If you've never seen Evolutions, well, you should see it before the next episode, and I will gladly rope in my brother and sister to watch it.
Yeah, if you somehow have not seen Dragon Ball Evolution, I highly recommend that you watch it. It might be the shittiest thing I've ever seen. I've watched a lot of shitty movies in my time.
I've seen shitty movies that are made by people who had the budget of $70, and I still like those better than I ever liked Evolution.
I turn Pirates of the Caribbean 4 on when I see it on the guide on TV, and I still think Dragon Ball Evolution is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Evolution is one of those, like, hollowed name things that people will call that everyone, I think, hates, except for, I think, I've only ever seen one person, I think, say, like, they kind of liked it, and I think that person also has weird opinions in general. Which is Rakurai Network, so he's not going to listen in. He's the one person I've seen say, like, that movie's okay, but he also has weird opinions.
Yeah. So. Rakurai, great guy. Very, very hard to get Dragon Ball criticism out of him.
It's true.
Great guy, though.
Great guy.
Sweet guy.
If you're here and you're listening to this 2 hours in, know that you are a great person.
Absolutely. But you're wrong if you think that movie's good.
If you think that movie's passable.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it more in 2 weeks' time. And I think we're good to sign off now. I hope everyone will get ready. Oh, I should say my brother and sister's name are Yaoi Mom and your boy Nux, depending on what time of day it is.
Follow them on Twitter. They're funny.
They're great. They're funny, and also they won't leave you alone. So that's great.
Also true. They're very devoted.
Yes, I love them. They're both lovely people. So I can't wait for you. Also, you should see that Ultimate Chicken Horse thing if you haven't.
Yes,
if you want to get
that's a good video. They have roles in my Discord channel now, just mocking your brother for losing.
I think I've said it. Maybe that's one of my favorite. Until Advance Wars Part 3, where we talked about ass eating, was one of my favorite video game videos I've ever made with the Mew Mew Force. By the end of Ultimate Chicken Horse, I could not talk anymore. The video doesn't have an ending; it just ends. So enjoy all that. Coming in 2 weeks' time, and it will be 2 weeks. We'll keep on schedule.
We're keeping schedule. There will be 1 week Concession Stand, 1 week the podcast formerly known as the Modcast. We're gonna switch them back and forth. So
name to be determined.
Yeah,
to be
podcast
released.
To be released. That would actually be kind of funny if we named it that and then never changed the name.
That'd be pretty good. My ultimate fear is that it's just going to be called the podcast formerly known as Modcast.
We should name it To Be Released, and then in like 6 months we should name the podcast +3 key and 150% attack defense and HP to the fusion category, and just call it that.
All right, I'm done. I'll think about that. Anyone who heard this, get ready for that joke in 6 months. All right. Just say goodbyes then.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We're sorry it's been so long. We're gonna keep with these. So we hope you have not been frustratedly waiting. I'm sure you haven't been, but still.
I know at least one person has. They're waiting.
Well, and this is for you, guy.
This is for you. 2 hours worth of stuff.
Yeah, this is a long one.
This is what happens when fucking JoJo takes forever.
Yeah, this is what happens when we haven't recorded in like 2 months, and it's about the stand portions of the JoJo anime.
It's true. All right. Goodbye.